Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Thursday morning. Well, look at that. We now know who the Utah Mammoth are playing in the playoffs. They're going to Vegas, baby. Yes, the Golden Knights got a win. They clinched the division title, so they're all done. That's 82 games for them, and they got an insurmountable lead over Edmonton. So Vegas will host the Utah Mammoth in games 1 and 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We ought to get the schedule after the final Mammoth game tonight. Season wraps up tonight with the St. Louis Blues. Nothing at stake. It's the wild card, number 1 wild card berth is all set for the Mammoth, and they will go play Vegas in the playoffs. The BYU basketball news: Rob Wright is returning, and Jake Wahlin commits the Clemson transfer to BYU. So, Cougar fans, your team's starting to round into shape here, starting to get an idea what this team is going to look like. We'll talk about that later this morning. Spring football continues up on the hill. What will the Utes look like? Morgan Scalley meeting with the media. Listen in.
Morgan, obviously, final week of spring camp. Just how are things coming along, and where do you feel like your team's at right now?
Really good. No more live work. We did a really nice job of getting the live work in. Defense getting tackling, offense fighting through tackles. Learning that guys are going to be punching for balls. So loved the live work that we got in. Seeing progress both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Key positions that still need developing: offensive line, defensive line, corner group. And the coaches are doing a heck of a job. But this May will really determine how invested they are, right? Their behavior will show whether or not they want to be elite. But I think everyone has a firm understanding of what needs to happen during the off time, and I expect it, them to come back ready to go.
Morgan, what's your health been like this spring?
Really good. Really good. Cut down on the soft tissue injuries. And really it was, I think, maybe a hamstring or two, a concussion, and then maybe a sprained knee. But other than that, with as much live work as you're doing, stuff happens. But very pleased with how we came out of this spring ball.
How would you assess?
I should say, knock on wood, 2 practices to go.
How would you assess the progress of Ike Garcia this spring?
Man, there's a guy that's found new life, coming off the injury, and injuries will do something to you mentally, and whether it's expectations. I'm just happy that he is finally, seeing success, believing in himself. He's getting, and he's always gotten great coaching, but he's finally getting to the point where it's clicking for him. And he's playing well at multiple positions along the offensive line, so we expect him to be a big contributor this season.
Which group have you seen have the most growth this spring so far?
I would continue to say the offensive line, Just because you're talking about a brand new crew having to work together, having to communicate together with a new offensive line coach. You come out here and you can see some situational work where you're not really trying to game plan versus each other, so things may look one way, but I'm very pleased with the progress that our O-line is made, and still a lot to go. But and I would say probably the corner group as well has been a very nice, I wouldn't say surprise, because Sharif's always done a great job of developing those guys, but very pleased with how that group's coming to shape.
For that offensive line, obviously nothing can replicate live work. How do you kind of help them improve in the off season as they gel and do everything they need to for fall?
Well, a lot of it is if you want to move weight out here on the football field, you have to move weight in the weight room. So that's continued development in the weight room. It's working together during your off time a little bit, but ultimately it's are you taking care of your body during the break, or are you ready when you come back, because there's still development that needs to happen in June and a little bit of July, but I'm excited for what's to come.
Do you have a sizable amount of freshmen out here this spring? Who has maybe exceeded your expectations this spring so far of the freshman group you have?
Obots, but you expected him to do some really good things. Who else do we have at freshman?
Lamarcus Bell, PJ Talkie, Dylan Waters.
Yeah, love them. All of them. Yeah. I don't know. I got to watch the film, you know. They're all making progress. I mean, in terms of I would say Kelvin is the guy that, you're saying, you have to be good for us, and that's pressure on him. But he's dealt with pressure his entire life, up until this point. So I'm excited. Those younger guys and Bell, you mentioned him. That's a guy that you put a challenge to, and he's going to attack it. You gotta have better hands. You see him out here every single day catching the football. Right? Relentless in pursuit of improvement, and I love that attitude. And PJ is a star on the rise. So I appreciate you guys. Excited for the Fan Fest, too, for fans to be able to meet these players, meet the new coaches. That's going to be a fun event.
All right, there's Utah football coach Morgan Scalley. All right, we will take a break. When we come back, Keyonte George, Jaren Jackson Jr. looking ahead to the offseason and next season. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. A couple Jazz players talking to the media before they head off for the offseason. Let's listen in to the new piece of the puzzle, Jaren Jackson Jr.
What's kind of the last couple months been like for you? I mean, getting to know the guys but not being on the court. What has this all been like?
I mean, it's been fun. Every day just being around them. Rehabbing and working hard, and I'm glad I got those 3 games under my belt before, so I'm overjoyed for that.
Where is your knee? What's the latest?
What's what?
Where's your knee as far as health goes?
Oh, it's fine. It's progressing normally, exactly how it should, and I'll be 100% for the season, but definitely 100% to train this summer, the whole entire summer.
Is that scary to find out when someone says like tumor?
Is it scary? Probably. I think I heard it like pretty early in the morning, so I was a bit like, oh damn. But yeah, it's something. It's life, man. Everyone's got a problem or everyone doesn't have a problem until you have one. So I think I was happy they were with me on it and directed me in the right way to take care of myself.
Lowry just told us that he was surprised, not in a bad way, but like when you got here, that you were way more detail oriented than he was expecting, and like picking up on small things and just like ready to talk right away. Did you want to kind of come in and make sure everyone knew that like this is a part of who I am?
Well, I think that's probably naturally who I've been, especially later in my career. I've watched a lot of guys, older than me when I was in Memphis, and they, seeing what they do and taking different parts of that, making it my own. And yeah, he's right. I'm always thinking about the game, and when we're not out there, we're always talking about X and O's and how we like the ball and where we like doing things. So I think that'll help us kind of speed run. You can't really speed run it, but speed run on-court chemistry a little bit, kind of get ahead quicker.
Having watched this team now for 2 months, what excites you about next season?
Our size, our versatility, the talent levels off the charts. There's really not much to not like. I mean, everybody's playing hard out there. The offensive system's great. And just I'm glad to be able to come here and do whatever it takes to help and lead and compete. And, yeah.
What can you do to help the defense? I mean, this year it's bottom of the league.
Mm-hmm.
You're known as a defensive stopper. What can you do to help the team? What can one person do to help the team change their ways?
Just go. I mean, whenever the ball, just go. I think when I was out there, I get a sample size, but, they're releasing me to go to the rim from wherever I'm at, and they'll organize around me and recover around me. So not just rotations that are set, with whoever's there go, but actually having me go. And I think just talking early and loud will help us because, the guards can't see behind their head, and that'll help them a lot.
How do you like to attack your off seasons? Like in the past, what have you done training wise? What are you hoping to get done this season?
Yeah. Definitely needs to change now that I'm older a bit. I probably needed to do, Depends how you look at it. But I probably needed to do a little bit less early. I think I would like to just hop right back on the court, like after any series when if I had lost the series or if we didn't make the playoffs. I was probably back on the court quicker than probably I should have been. And I think taking that time off from it is good, but I've been also rehabbing, so it's a different type of timeline. And just working on my body and my conditioning and really getting in the best shape, I think, is my number one priority. Like, I'm not thinking of anything else but that, because, you can use conditioning as a weapon for real. Like, it's a huge thing, especially in Utah, so.
What have you learned about Will?
Will? What have I learned about Will? I mean, he loves the game. He loves to compete. He's fiery. Definitely wants to win all the time. So I think that fits in great with who I am as a person. Open dialogue about who I am, just so he knows how to get the best out of me, coaching me. And, yeah, he's great.
Well, do you like hard coaching? Do you need someone to come in a little bit softer? Because everyone's different with that. What do you like?
I mean, what do you like? I mean, I feel like, I don't think, like, as a player, you don't get to pick that. I think you adapt to what you're in and be grateful for the opportunity. I don't know if I've ever had that. I mean, I had Coach Izzo, so I know what's up and down the line. In high school, it was same sort of thing. I've seen hard coaching in my life, so I don't think I've known much else. I don't know any coaches that aren't hard, honestly.
I think there's some coaches that are like, they know that there's some guys on the team that, like, if they get really, really into them, then they're not going to react the best, so like they can be a little bit harder on some guys than others.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he's hard on me. I hope that sets the precedent for everything down the line. I want to be coached, and that's the only way you're going to grow.
As you think about this team getting healthy and playing again with you and Key and Walker and Larry, like, just what do you think about the potential of this team next season in a pretty loaded Western Conference?
Yeah, there's no take every game for what it is. Don't look ahead. I know about the Western Conference. It's a bloodbath every year. That will never change, and I think that's the excitement about it. It's gonna be fun to compete every night. You're seeing these teams 4 times, learning them. So then when you get to the postseason, you figured out what they do, they figure out what you do, and you just got to do everything perfect or try to do everything perfect. I think the West is never going to change, and you just got to stay humble and put your head down and just work. You can't really look too much. You don't know where guys are going to be in the league come next season with the moves happening in the summer, but I guarantee you a lot of them will be in the West.
Having been around for a couple months, what stands out about the consistency of the support from Jazz fans?
Selling out games. I think when I'm walking around, just the dialogue is pretty interesting. Like they kind of skip the whole hello thing. They kind of just go right, hey, like they'll be like, hey, how's the knee? Is it good? That'll be like the first thing they'll say to me instead of hi. Kind of like, they're already in the system. They're already, I'm coming into their ecosystem a little bit. So it's unwavering support everywhere. Shoot, Park City, walk around downtown. I mean, you're gonna feel that. I for sure gonna feel it tonight in our last home game.
You've grown close to anyone inside the locker room specifically, anyone you've gotten to know very well?
I mean, well, I came over here with my boys. I think with my schedule with when I started rehabbing versus when I was playing, like I was around Keyonte a lot more. I think we've been pretty much in the gym at the same time all the time. So, conditioning-wise, we've been bouncing ideas off each other on how we want to approach the off-season. And then Lau is a psycho with just how he works. And I'm just, we're bouncing ideas off each other on what we can do to improve. Zay, EJ, Ace. Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, playing ride's been fun. You know these guys. I mean, y'all know them even better than I know them, and these are fun guys.
I'll ask it kind of in a more pointed way. Do you think that this roster can make the playoffs?
100%.
All right, there is Jaren Jackson Jr. Now, here's Keyonte George with the media.
Turn the page the most this season.
I would probably say, I'll probably say mentally, obviously. I talk about it all the time working with Dr. Craig, and I think just the mental aspect, of my game has taken, the physical part to a whole nother level. So I just think, while I was out there this year, having mental notes, proactive self-talk, just things like that, just to keep me in the game. There are times where maybe early in my career, it's still early, but, 2 years ago or a year ago, I may, lose myself throughout the game, even times this year. But I think every year, those certain little moments have, they've lessened. So I think for me, I think I took a big time jump as far as, my mental.
Are your expectations, do you think that your expectations are going to be greater, that you're going to have more pressure, you're going to put more pressure on yourself next season?
I think, just to speak on the expectations, most of my expectations are with the team. I know what I'm capable of. I know what Lowry, Wall, everybody from top to bottom, everybody knows what they're capable of. So I think my expectations now is, I expect for us to have, good camaraderie. I expect for us to, come in with a common goal every single day. So that's really just what I expect. I expect every day to honestly be fun. Things have went the way they went, the past couple of years, but I think for us now as a group, and especially with the changes that we've made, I think now we all have not a fresher breath air, but almost a breath of fresh air, but it's almost like, like I said, we just all have a common goal, so it'll be fun.
Do you think that this roster can make the playoffs?
For sure. It's no doubts about it, in my mind. When you look, on paper, we look phenomenal, big, have length, can shoot it, can get to the rim. We got multiple defensive guys that can protect the paint, protect the perimeter. When you look at us, we got, all the tools. So that's why I said earlier, I just, expect us to have, great team camaraderie. And like I said, as long as we have a common goal, everybody else will hit their individual goals or, whatever they want to achieve.
You've really grown as a leader throughout these 3 seasons now. At the beginning of the season, we talked about you hosting the guys back in Dallas. But what do you think has been the biggest change in taking on that leadership role and responsibility?
I'll probably say it's just every day. When there's times where, you feel like everybody has those days where they don't feel like, coming in or they got to push through, certain aches and pains. So I think for me, it was just about every day coming in, working, staying true to my habits. And, I think the group, whenever there's a leader of a group, you kind of look at that guy and you kind of say, like, every day he's doing the same thing over and over again, not getting bored, with the simple stuff. So I think for me, it was just, I came in every day understanding, what got me to the point where I am now and kind of just fell back on those things. And, when guys are, leaving the facility and, I may stay back and shoot, it kind of gives them the confidence when we get in between those lines for the 48. They know that I've put the work in. So I think to answer your question, it's just about me kind of being almost like this, not getting too high, too low, just trying to, go day by day, understanding, just trying to win every single day, and then the days start to stack up.
Where's your game at defensively?
I would just say just holding my ground. Our backline defense is, phenomenal. So, the confidence up top, keeping I can pressure the ball. I can, try to, speed them up a little bit, knowing that, okay, they get to their in-between game. I know I got guys behind me, but, it's the same thing as, when I was playing, with Walker at first. I got confidence up top, but, if you beat me down the slot or down the middle, I know I got Walker at the rim, and, I'll veer off, take care of his guy, and, we just rotate. So, I think for me, next year it's just going to be all about personnel, knowing the guy, his tendencies in front of me, and that'll help me a lot.
Kevin Love has talked about your relationship and your bond. There's a quick exchange that you guys have before tip. Can you walk us through that moment and just what it's been like having him on the team?
Yeah, I mean, K-Love's been, around, my GOAT. So, I mean, it's been a pleasure just to ask him so many questions. And like I said before, like I think I'm just really interested in the mental part of the game. So him coming around, he spoke out about that a lot. It was good to have, some side conversations after the games or after practice or on the plane. But yeah, I mean, K-Love, he's big time for me. He empowers me, every single day. He sits, right next to me, at the arena. So if I feel like something's not going my way, at halftime, he may, bring me back, to life. So, that's the type of vet that, I love to have around. And I can also, I can speak for the group too. He's just brings, energy to the group every single day. One thing about K-Love, I feel like I just, never see him have a bad day. Like, he always gonna joke. He always gonna do his little thing, post on Instagram, stuff like that. So, even if, things are going bad for the team, he always finds a way to, bring us together as one.
It's going to probably be a higher level of scrutiny on this team next season. What do you think that's going to be like?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, like I said, our camaraderie. And then once it comes to, the dialogue, in between the lines, and there's going to be days where we watch, film for the whole day, and, we got to kind of be honest, with ourselves and be able to take, constructive criticism. Since I've been here, there's been times like that, but, the direction that we want to go to has to be every day, starting in the summer, having dialogue with everybody, and then we get back and report in a couple weeks before camp, and then camp, and so I think it's going to be a high level of all that. There's going to be some days where we're getting after each other, but I think that's what good teams do. When you can battle against one another, but then like I said, have a common goal. And when you go in between the lines, there's no hard feelings. Nobody's in their like I said, nobody's in their feelings. Like I said, when you have a common goal, you kind of just wash everything out, and like I said, it's like a brotherhood. So.
Do you think that you're going to see a different side of Will?
Yeah, Will's already a maniac, so he's gonna have his moments, but I know Will. I know he wants the best for us. So whatever that looks like from Will, I know it'll be a lot of screaming and yelling, but it's gonna make us great. Down the line.
Does it surprise you that Nurk said that that this was the first year that he doesn't think that a coach said a bad word to him?
Never mind. I'm not going to say Nurk's lying or he's not. I know what Nurk says to me, though. That's crazy.
Cool. Yeah, you've talked about the fans and their support.
Yeah.
What excites you most about next season when you think about these fans?
Yeah, it's obviously it's a new era for us, but a big basketball fan. So when you go back to the Utah teams that were winning, and you see how the fans act. Seeing back then when they had them orange jerseys, everybody had white and orange in the stands. I just can't wait for that. Obviously, they have energy every single game for us, but now, when we get high, when we get rolling, I can only imagine what the city is going to be.
As you're kind of envisioning those things, would not making it to the postseason next year be a disappointment?
I wouldn't say disappointment. Obviously, our expectation is to get to the postseason, and we have a couple people on our team that have got there. I wouldn't say a disappointment, but I think it would be a disservice to ourselves, just knowing the type of talent that we have, and we have people on the team that know what it takes to get to the postseason, and like you said, with the dialogue going around through the team, and I mean, Will and his staff and our staff, like they all know what it takes. They've all been around great players. So I wouldn't say disappointment, but I think we'll be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't come in every day working hard and, like I said, wanting wanting more than, everybody around us. So, we're young, we're hungry, so anything can happen, but, that's the goal and more.
All right, there is Keyonte George, the Jazz, looking ahead to the offseason and to next season. We will do the same later in the show, but right now we're going to take a break, and when we come back, Weber State football coach Eric Kjar making the transition from Corner Canyon High. We'll talk with Eric next. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're joined now by Weber State football coach Eric Kjar. Eric, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good. I am really curious to talk to you. You were a high school football coach.
You did in a former life to have to deal with PK every day?
Come on.
Oh, nice.
Have you ever asked yourself that question?
And yes, he drops to his knees and praises the Almighty.
Oh, man.
Sorry, PK.
I'm used to it.
Yeah, you too. See, people don't know. People don't know. They just don't know. Oh,
they don't understand your plight of what you've had to deal with in life.
Jeez, my plight.
Hey, I got back at him, though, DJ. For years, I sat in the stands and screamed, replace the coach.
He did. Andy would send anonymous emails all the time that I had to track down through like an IP address that were coming from him.
When you lost that game once every other year, he was furious.
He lost 10 games at corner. What the freak?
10 more than we wanted to, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what is the biggest change? You're used to the rhythm of the high school season, and you had a powerhouse, and you had it rolling, and now you go to Weber State, and, man, it's older kids, it's newer rules, it's NIL. What has been the biggest adjustment, the thing where you're like, I have really got to get my arms around this?
More than anything, like day-to-day operations of like running a college football program, there's quite a bit of difference between that and a high school program, and just trying to learn as much as I can and lean on people that have been through it before, and managing rosters is probably the biggest one, and then trying to figure out some of the NIL stuff. Like, that's probably not going to be a huge reality. We do some of it for sure, and then just organizing things from like a recruiting standpoint for our assistant coaches, areas, what we're looking for, needs, like traits we're looking for in players at certain positions, all those types of things. Everybody thinks I was already probably doing that recruiting part at Corner Canyon, but not.
I've always thought that other stuff that you speak of, that's different. But when you're devising a game plan, that coaching is coaching. Do you see that, or is coaching at this level much different from what you have been doing?
I think that part's probably the most similar part of the whole thing, the actual football aspect of it, like teaching, coaching players, especially from a scheme standpoint, what you're looking for, like running practice and stuff like that. That part was, been the easiest transition of the whole thing. I think that's, like you said, the game planning, installing scheme, teaching the day-to-day, having accountability at practice and pushing kids to, just be better. That part was, the easiest part, probably the most natural part of what I think I bring to the table as a coach.
I'm curious about assessing these guys in the transfer portal, because we see all these guys leaving Power 4 schools and even, Group of 5, or I guess with the Pac-12, Group of 6 schools now. And so you would think at a quote-unquote lower level there'd be a lot of talent available. But I would just, whenever I talk with people about that, I think the thing you always have to mention is, hey, there are future NFL players running around in the big sky. That's really clear. And on top of that, you got to be able to measure, the heart and the work ethic, and you still have to get better. So there are guys who on paper look like they should really be able to help you, and at the same time you really got to be careful you get the right guys. How do you assess that, especially when you're doing it for the first time?
That's really the hardest part, because I think the more you dive into the portal, especially at our level, I think you run that risk a little bit. Some kids are looking to finish their career, playing more and having an opportunity to play, and like Devin Browns is that way. some kids are just looking for another chance, and you don't know what what baggage they might have, or, why they're in the portal, or what's happened previously in their playing career that's, put them in this position. And so you're trying to evaluate all that stuff, and that's a slippery slope because you just don't know. You talk to other coaches or coaches where they've been or that are in their program or that were in their program, and they tell you things, but you still are really it's a risk for sure every time you take a kid, in my opinion, out of the portal just because you're not 100% sure what you're going to get. And then you're looking at, how well will they fit into the culture you're trying to establish in your program, like what that's going to look like, their fit. Because talent-wise, I think that part's the easier part to really evaluate. It's just when you start getting down into the culture-wise, how they fit your position group and all those other aspects, any off-field issues, whatever. That's the scary part because that part's probably the most important thing you're looking for.
You mentioned Devin Brown. Remember him when he was playing for you at corner, and then he's gone on Ohio State, Cal, and now he's coming back. It's kind of a weird situation to reunite with his high school coach, but that's what we have here. But you also got other guys, Tisdale, McCollum, Duran. Where's it stand as far as the quarterbacking?
Yeah, I'm surprised Devin wanted me to coach him again. I didn't know how much he likes that the first time, but yeah, it's been fun having him back, and it's been just his approach, his attitude, and everything else. He's so coachable and listens, and just been great. In our program already here, just taking a business-like approach, handles himself the right way. And then our other quarterbacks, like Cash, is really, really talented. Player from Texas who probably, he had a little incident with his hand last year, else he probably would have played, I think, significant reps last year. And then because of that injury, Kingston was able to play quite a bit last year and had some good games and had a really, really good game against Northern Arizona, their last game of the year. And then DJ's coming from a junior college, and a pass scheme has been really kind of new to him based off what they were running before, but he's picked it up really, really well. We've been super happy with him through the spring in his role. He's been great.
One thing I've heard former Weber State coaches say, a couple of them have said it, Dave Arslanian used to scream it from the rooftops, there are a lot of skill players. Guys blossom late, maybe guys don't get the right coaching, guys are they're not in the right system. He said you can find skill players, and those are a lot of times the players that you see moving on from the Big Sky to the NFL. He said, but man, it's pretty clear what's happening at the line of scrimmage. Everyone can see when one kid starts pushing another kid around. He said finding linemen at this level is really tricky. And I would think in the transfer portal, where if anyone starts having tape like that, they're gone in a heartbeat. How easy has it been to find linemen on both sides of the ball?
That's been, you hit it right on the head. It's really difficult. Big bodies are at a premium right now, just in general in college football, and if you're even average at this level, you have value. At the highest levels of football, they'll come in and scoop you up for $300,000 and $400,000 to come be a depth piece at a Power 4, Power 5 type school. And we can't match anything like that, but that's really the reality. There's two kids that left here that have done that, that were here this winter, and I think that because that's what everybody's looking for. Everybody, like you had mentioned with Coach Arcelani, and that piece is so important in football. And those guys are just getting scooped up at the highest levels. So you really got to try to find guys that are getting overlooked, that you feel like can develop and learn quickly, that you can plug in and play probably before they're ready, honestly, at this level now with how it's gone. But the best thing we can do to really combat that is to try to do a better job at the high school level, bringing in good kids and building depth within our program. So when we do lose a few of those kids, we have some pieces in behind it that we feel good about.
I'm wondering if that you can just do what UVU basketball. We've spoken to their coach Todd Phillips several times over the years. There's a kid like the kid Welling who played at corner. I think he went to Irvine, and then he moves up to UVU, and he plays well. I always thought he was under-recruited. I saw him play a ton in high school. But so then he goes on to what? I think it was Clemson. And Todd Phillips just rolls with it. He's like, okay, that's the way of the world now. So rather than sit here and whine about it, we understand that's probably going to happen. So we're going to embrace it, and we're going to go out and get the best kids that we can get. We'd love for them to stay, but if they don't, then we just replace them with the best kids we can get. And the machine just keeps rolling, and it becomes like an assembly line. And they've had some really good seasons here of late. I'm wondering if you might end up taking that approach. If a kid leaves, as you just said, $300,000 or $400,000 for a depth piece, so be it. We'll just go get some other kids that are just as good, and we'll develop them. If they stay, great. If not, we'll replace them.
100%. You really have to embrace it at this level, because it's a reality. It's you're not gonna you're gonna turn around in December and you're not keeping all your kids for sure. And that's just reality of what it is. And it's just like you said, some of these other coaches have done a great job of understanding that and working around it. If you understand that and that's a reality, you can do some things within your program to try to help put you in a situation where it's not going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you either way, but it's not going to be as bad of a blow to you. And then just trying to find other players too once that does happen.
It seems like so much of football has gone to measurables, right? There's a lot of NFL draft talk now, and they're criticizing guys for having short arms, and you're like, okay, maybe you didn't give up a sack for a year and a half. I mean, at some point, what does it matter, right? But I wonder for the high school kids who, and they want to play at Utah or BYU, if you're going to get hurt on the back end, Eric, why not get helped on the front end? I mean, the coaches at Utah, the coaches at BYU, now the coaches at Michigan. Can you just walk out of the Utah high schools and just say, they think you're an inch too short, they think your arm is 2 inches short, come to Weber State, we will get you better. And when you don't give up a sack, they're going to notice. It goes back to the point Dave said. He's like, it's not hard to see when one kid's shoving another kid all over the field. You want him. And I wonder if that can give you an edge on the front end, even though like PK says, it's going to hurt you later on.
Yeah, and that's really we've even encouraged some of the kids we took out of the portal this year. We even said, hey, your best option is probably to come here for a year and play at a high level, and then we may be losing you next year, but you've improved your stock, and teams have for whatever reason, like you said, it's all measurable stuff, have decided to pass on you. But now because you played and had a great season in a really good FCS conference, you've boosted that and you're getting what you want. Anyway, it's just a year later, but you've also got a lot of experience. I mean, being here and playing in a year in a great conference is going to definitely help that player and put themselves in a good position down the road. And I think embracing that side, just like you said, is really, really important to what we're doing. You guys are pretty smart. You guys have a lot of this stuff down. You guys are on your game.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a long, long time, I guess.
Well, you're on your game, too, because the answer you gave was just a lot like the answer Bronco gave. That was very similar to what Bronco said. Yeah. And he's at a slightly different spot in the food chain. But unless you're at the very top or the very bottom, the issues are the same.
Yeah, they really are. And just because it's going to keep going up, unless you're really at the top end of it.
Yeah,
like probably Michigan is, and some of those two power conferences like the SEC and the Big Ten, you're going to always be playing with those rules. In my opinion, it doesn't matter where you're at along that food chain.
I read that you felt like the defense is ahead of the offense, which is not necessarily surprising at this point along the timeline. And, this summer they have opportunities to get better on their own, and then you'll reconvene for August to prepare for the season. But I also saw where you said that maybe a little concern on the front seven defensively. You want more physicality?
Yeah. And I think I love what we're doing from a schematic standpoint. I think our defensive coordinator, Coach Fowler, and our defensive staff have done a really, really good job in the spring. And they make things from a scheme standpoint, really hard on you offensively. And I think if we can add some physicality pieces here in the late spring, heading into summer, that's just going to enhance and improve our defense to a level where I think we can be one of the top tier in the conference. So that's going to be something we'll focus on as we move here forward in the next month. I think we have the scheme piece and a good understanding of what our players and their assignments are defensively, and executing that scheme. Now, if we can just add some physical pieces a little bit more in key positions, I think that group's going to be really, really good.
Eric Kjar joining us, Weber State football coach. I'm curious because I know that all the coaches here know each other and in many cases have coached together and have gone over film together. You were telling us earlier, like sometimes you got to play offensive linemen before they're ready. So I'm wondering how much that informs a defensive coordinator. Like, one of the things, aside from the physicality, the communication piece on the offensive line is important. So let's hit them with a few exotic blitzes because all these Big Sky schools may have to play some guys a little early. And if they're not, if they're not communicating, if they're not passing guys off with twists and stunts and whatever exotic zone blitzes you come up with, maybe you get some big plays defensively because they got the same they're dealing with the same problems you're dealing with.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Just the overall ability to develop and get guys that are really ready and have had a ton of experience, which we don't have on our offensive line. We have one kid that played a decent amount last year and started some games, but we're relatively young. So to counter that, or also game planning wise, I'm sure we're going to see in teams across the conference, and I know our staff will definitely dial some things up that can make it really difficult just in protection and protection rules from an offensive standpoint that are gonna make it hard on them. And we faced a lot of that this spring too, but that kind of stuff's gonna help us. Like we saw some really things that are tough schematically throughout the spring, but seeing those things and being able to coach and teach your kids how to pick those up, how to pass that off. Like you said, communication's huge in that, and being able to get them doing that early, where we're seeing a ton of that early, is just going to help our kids. But, yeah, you're 100% right. I think you'll see that from an offensive line play part of it. Defensive's kind of attacking a little bit more, and then that's your job as an offensive coordinator, is trying to scheme things up and make those assignments a little bit easier on your guys as well from a quarterback and a offensive line protection standpoint.
Well, I've heard stories probably going back 15, maybe even close to 20 years of that Eric Kjar in the weight room at the high school level. And you were jacked and you were impressing kids who are 14 and 15 years old. Whoop-de-doo. I want to know how you stack up with 20, 21-year-olds and those types, because it's a different climate for you now, big guy.
Yeah, I'm definitely, probably more like mid to low tier in the strengths category now. It's a humbling experience for sure from a strength standpoint, but I'm in there getting after it with them and try to push. And I really love that opportunity to get in there with our athletes and be able to be involved with them and connect with them on a different level that I don't think I get to as often as a head coach, because you're a lot more busy and you don't get to spend as much time with your players. But that part's been great. But yeah, I've definitely taken an ego hit up here for sure, PK.
You out there running with the DBs and the
I
wide receivers?
cannot run anymore. I've my knees have gotten to a point where if I try to run, I can run that day, but I pay for it for 2 weeks after. I'm pretty stationary now, other than I like to lift with them and stuff. But age, I'm going the other way. I'm getting into a category where I'm lifting with stronger kids, but I'm aging. I hit 47 this year, and the strength numbers are coming down anyway. So it's bad in two ways.
It's only going to get worse, big guy. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. Well, we appreciate the time, and it's interesting to talk to you as you try to figure out how the pieces of the puzzle fit together at Weber State, Eric. Good luck. Enjoy what little downtime you get here before you get into camps, and then it's back into I assume you're running a full set of camps up there.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're excited. We got our 7-on-7 camp coming up, and then our Best of the West individual camps. So we're excited about those and excited to be able to evaluate some kids in the area too.
All right. Well, thanks for a few minutes. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again as the season gets closer.
Yeah, you guys have a good one. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
There's Eric Kjar. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know. News update.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NBA.
Oubre with it to Drummond. Drummond shoots a three from the corner, and it's good. He's going to send the Sixers to Boston. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, and 3 if Drummond hits a three.
Drives on Dunn, drives on Garland, flips it up and in, right down the lane. Underhand scoop by Curry. Curry now with 31 points tonight. Another 30-plus game in a do-or-die contest for Curry. Runs it right, behind the back to Draymond, back to Steph. Dribbles off a double team, fades and fires. It's good! A sideline three for Steph Curry.
And the Golden State Warriors knock the Clippers out in the play-in game. A big game for Steph Curry, 35 points. He's got it going, and they live to play another day. They'll advance and go play Phoenix on Friday to see who the 8th seed is in the West. He's still Magic, PK. He can't stay healthy, and the team can't stay healthy, and they're mediocre at best. But in any given night, he can put on a show, and he put on a show.
Good for him. Yeah, way to go. It's hard for me to imagine any of these teams advancing, so it's hard to get into it, but on a one-game basis, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're playing for the 8th seed, you're playing for Wright to play Oklahoma City, and the 7 seeds are playing for the Wright to play San Antonio, and those two just look like overwhelming favorites. As they do in the East, where it's Detroit 1 and Boston 2, and Philadelphia gets the win, so they get to advance, and we'll see what they can do. It's hard to believe they can do much of anything. They beat Orlando 109. 107. So the Sixers are the 7th seed, and they will play Boston, which sounds great. Philly and Boston, ancient rivalry, all that stuff, but it looks like a mismatch. Orlando hosts Charlotte on Friday to see who advances. Charlotte's guard LaMelo Ball was fined $60,000 for tripping Bam Adebayo Tuesday night, along with his use of profane language in the TV in the aftermath of their win over the Miami Heat. Bizarre time to be that erotic and to foul a guy that erratic. And to be, hello, and to be laying on the floor and just grab a guy's foot and pull him down and trip him. That's not, what are you doing?
I'm lost for the rest of the show. I'm sorry.
You are, that's it. It's all over. It's just one vowel, PK. Buy a vowel. Let's go. Spin the wheel of fortune. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college basketball.
He's back. Robert Wright III went into the transfer portal, went to Kentucky, took a trip there, visited Mark Pope, looked around, Rupp Arena, came back and decided to return to BYU for his junior season. And the Cougars also get Jake Wahlin in the portal. So they had a couple guys who you assume are going to play a bunch of minutes this year, PK. That's a big part of the starting lineup, I would assume.
I don't know if Jake is going to start. I have to see what the roster looks like, but I don't really care if he starts because these are the types of players that I've been talking about that they need to get on their team and to be able to have those types of guys. Veteran dudes know the BYU way. I think he's from Provo, right? And he originally signed there, and he's got some athletic ability. There's no question about it. And they just need some better players from 4, 5 to 6, 7, 8, 9, however deep they want to go, as they did Kevin Young's first year. As far as Rob Wright, what I heard nationally jives with what I heard locally. that, he feels comfortable here. And there's something to be said for being familiar with your surroundings. That even extends beyond the basketball floor and all those things that go into it. He's going to get paid. He should get paid, man. Everybody else is getting paid. What am I going to crack on him for seeking as much money or seeking more money than he had, whatever the money might be? It's, I heard, my gosh, these are unconfirmed reports. I'm hesitant to say it, but, I heard upwards of $3 million. That seems outrageous. But if that's the going price until they change the rules or have modifications, he ought to be getting some of it too. I'd have my hand out to be able to receive it. If players XYZ and I'm capable of competing well with them, they're getting it. Why shouldn't I get it? And so you factor all those things in, and he made, I believe, that's the best decision for him, which is a good thing. I think it's a good thing for BYU, but I'm talking about from Rob Wright's standpoint. And, as we talked about yesterday and pretty much the whole week, is that he has the opportunity to improve. He'll understand Kevin more. Kevin will understand him more. The staff, they have a pro staff. That's what they preach about, and they sell that point. So they'll be able to get him going. And I'm optimistic that he will play better and the team will be better. Can't have any worse health, you wouldn't think, knock on wood, all that stuff. And so he'll be able to play at a higher level than we saw this past season.
Going to still need to add a few more guys here. It'll be interesting to see who they get. You're right. These were a couple of the obvious targets, and they needed them, and they got them. They still need a little more. I mean, you think what they saw.
There's work to be done, absolutely.
Right. You saw what happened against Arizona, Houston, Texas Tech, Iowa State. There's more heavy lifting to be done. But
I would throw Texas in the most important game of the season was Texas in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. DJ and PK.
#NFL.
He's not available for trade, and they are things are going good. We've had some positive conversations over the last couple days, trending in the right direction. He's obviously very important to what we're doing, and it's all part of it. It's part of professional sports. We'll get where we need to be one way or the other, but yeah, things are trending in the right direction.
Miami's trying to build a team, and they are missing a lot of pieces of the puzzle, but they are not willing to move their running back, who I think a lot of people would like to get their hands on. I think they could get something for Devon Achane. But obviously they just brought in a quarterback, bringing Willis in from Green Bay. But, man, the rest of that team, it just looks like a lot of pieces on offense need to be turned over. Running back, I think, is usually – because those guys tend to have shorter careers, it's usually one of the last pieces of the puzzle you put together, I would think. Instead, they're going to try to rebuild around him. Not available. Don't call us. We'll call you, and we won't call you.
I don't expect the Dolphins to be a factor in the AFC this year.
I wouldn't think so. It's got the Patriots and the Bills look like they got a couple really good teams at the top of the East. And the Dolphins, I'd be surprised if they got to 500. That'd be surprising. NFL has started onboarding potential replacement officials as expiration of the collective bargaining agreement with the NFL Referees Association approaches. Clubs were informed yesterday in a memo. The NFL plans to help officiate games via video feeds if replacement officials are used in actual games. Wonder how much of this is positioning and bargaining and negotiating, because it's April and we're still 4.5 months away from playing games.
I think you don't wonder. You actually think that is.
Leverage. It needs to be leverage. It's hard enough, and enough calls get missed with the guys who are supposed to be out there. If you put out people who aren't as good and aren't as experienced, stand to reason they're going to be even more missed calls.
You think there's enough calls? You think that's an issue? Calls are being missed?
I think it drives people nuts when it's your team and calls are missed. Yeah.
I'm not arguing that. I'm asking you, do you think there's enough calls being missed?
There are quite a few calls being missed, yes. I can watch the games and get over it. It's fine. But, yeah, I see stuff and think, what are you calling? And I see them at times in high-profile situations. That Rams-Saints playoff game a few years ago, that's pass interference, throw the flag. What are you doing?
Everyone goes back to that one. I understand that.
Well, it's the most egregious one out there.
I think this is an opportunity, then, for you to get into refereeing.
No.
Because if you're seeing it, you've got an eye for it.
DJ and PK.
#college football.
Arch Manning's been limited this spring as he recovers from off-season foot surgery. He says he feels 100% now. He's ready to return. Says he's taking it slow, but if there were a game today, he'd be playing. And as far as lessons learned last year, I think I could have had more fun. The first half of the season, I was pissed. I wasn't playing well, and it wasn't fun for me. And then I sort of said, screw it, and I had a little more fun and started winning some games. Just said he was too hard on himself. So I guess part of playing for the first time, PK, we want these stars to be awesome right out of the gate. It's fun when they are, but this is also a more normal progression.
Well, it's his third year now, obviously, but last year was his first year as a starter. And I could argue that there's never been a more hyped quarterback coming from the high school ranks into college. And just simply the last name has a lot to do with it. Obviously, grandfather, uncles, Hall of Famers, and you've got that name, and you're going to Texas, and it's wow. I mean, it's just amazing to think that he can even have any success relative to the expectation level, because I can't think of him, certainly not more of a publicized kid. Nobody comes to mind. Obviously, Tom Brady didn't have it. He never really was a big-time, full-time starter at Michigan, and everybody considers him the greatest quarterback of all time. And then you go back to other quarterbacks. Steve Young was 47th on the depth chart, and I think that was at safety. It wasn't even at quarterback. And when Joe Montana played, there was really no hype to the level that it is now for high school kids, right? Whoever you pick, I can't imagine that there was somebody who had more publicity and more attention surrounding him. So with that in mind, it's almost like it was impossible to live up to it. And I like what he's saying, because the idea is just go play football and not worry about all the other stuff. Don't overthink. Sure, there's an enormous amount of pressure because your name is Manning. There's also an enormous amount of blessings that come because your name is Manning. Well, forget all that and just play football.
The hype for him was unreal. And there's a lot of hype for 4- and 5-star quarterbacks. But, man, that name, when your grandfather and two of your uncles have accomplished the stuff they have. I mean, the second he signed, he was like, well, he'll be the number one pick in 2025. So he did his 3 years. He didn't get to play them all. I mean, he was sitting almost exclusively the first year. He barely played at all. And the second year he played a little, and then he got to start. So we'll see if this is the year that launches him to the top of the draft. And if he plays the way he did the second half of the season, it probably will.
Wasn't there a guy
that
at Notre Dame, I think his name Paulus, and Dino Cook or somebody said he's going to win not one, not two, Heismans and all that stuff. And the kid never panned out. I mean, the quarterback, it's not exactly a flip of a coin, but it is a mystery until it's unveiled or revealed, and it seems like as many times as that mystery is solved, it's solved to the negative, not necessarily to the positive. It's like, okay, this kid is not a player because what he did in high school is great and all, but it's meaningless at this level. And then obviously from the college level to the pro level, it's also meaningless, and we see a bunch of that. It is the quarterback is the great unknown until it isn't.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
The runners go. Breaking ball. Swing on line drive. Base hit left field. Here comes Jazz. He'll score. Wells coming to third. They're going to wave him on. Here comes the throw to the plate. It's there in time. He's safe. Yankees win. The Yankees win it. Caballero put it in play. And the Yankees win it 5-4 to take game 3 of this series.
Line to left. It is a fair ball. Down the left field line to the corner. Around from second base, Campusano. Laureano's coming around. Padres will walk it off. Merrill Madness. Padres were down at one time 6 runs. Not anymore.
That's awesome.
Padres were down 6-0. Got a home run to make it, I think, 6-2 in the 6th. And then a 2-out rally in the 9th. And they score 5 times, and they win the game. It's crazy. Single, double. No home run, PK, but everybody, hitting's contagious. And with 2 out in the 9th, somehow they rallied and got the win.
Yeah, I think Jackson Merrill has a little bit of stardom written on him, and how good can he be over the next several years, because he's still a youngster, and he can do it with the glove, he can do it with the bat, and they're rolling. What's that, 7 in a row now?
That is 7 straight, and they're 12-6, and he's out there in center field making plays, and had a sensational rookie campaign, so a fresh face and all that kind of stuff. And the other game you heard in there was the Yankees, who had a 5-game losing streak, but they go and take 2 out of 3 from the Angels, and they win in dramatic fashion as well. So they're 10-8 and over 500, and they're off to a great start. A little bump in the road. The Angels are good for what ails you. And those are all great stories and great games, but celebrity sells, PK, and who's got more of that than Shohei Ohtani? Well, they didn't let him hit, but man, he went out on the mound, and that was awesome. 6 innings, 10 strikeouts, 1 hit, absolutely dominated the Mets. When you've lost 7 in a row and your next assignment is, hey, you get to play the Dodgers and Shohei's on the mound. Awesome. So now it's 8 in a row.
Yeah, I watched that game and watched him when he was done. I went to bed. But electric. And I like the fact that they didn't let him hit. And statistically, the numbers offensively are not nearly as good. And they shouldn't be, obviously, because if you're going to be a starting pitcher, hitting is secondary, no matter how great of a hitter you are. And he has the opportunity, obviously, to get back in the lineup as a DH. But, man, he just throws the ball so hard, reading stuff on him, that sometimes he falls in love with his electric stuff, and who wouldn't? And he's got to learn a little bit. They were talking about, I was listening to what Mark Pryor was saying. He's a pitching coach for the Dodgers, and the ability to not rely on 1 or 2 things. And as he gets that he will be even more dominant. And the whole premise of the story was that he really wants to win the Cy Young this year. And if he gets enough starts, you got to get enough starts, obviously, to be able to be in contention. And if he does what he's capable of doing, combined with the knowledge of being a pitcher rather than just blowing it by everybody, because it's hard to do consistently start after start to that level, that he is just going to take it to a place where he hasn't been as a pitcher. And if he's going to win the Cy Young, then he's going to go down as the greatest player ever. I mean, yep. And normally we don't like to say, we do in basketball, but in baseball, we're hesitant to say, oh, he's the greatest, whatever, because of the history of the sport. And wow, if he gets a Cy Young with the 4 MVPs and the stolen bases and the home runs and blah, 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 man, he might be the first active player to be elected to the Hall of Fame.
Your point about starts, they're 18 games in. They've only let him start 3 games so far. But the ERA is a microscopic 0.5. The whip is a microscopic 0.72. It's just unreal.
And when I watch the Dodgers, and that was a home game at Dodger Stadium, and I always see over in the first row, if the old Entertainment Tonight gal, Mary Hart, if she's there in that first row,
I do that
then you know it's a big game.
She's there a lot.
Well, yeah. I mean, she has season tickets, obviously, and is a huge fan. That's obvious. But when I try to watch the Dodgers as much as I can. I've got a Dodger hat on right now. That when I see her there, or when I don't see her, I was thinking, oh, this isn't really a big game. It's like she's my barometer. And when I turned it on, I specifically looked, knowing I would see her, because if you're a baseball fan to that level, your butt's going to be there when Shohei Ohtani is pitching. There's just no doubt about that.
I wonder, does the whole variable pricing thing happen where they charge more for some games than others? Is the Shohei ticket just worth twice as much? I saw they listed 50,000 there, so that's not quite a sellout at Dodger Stadium. It's obviously an enormous crowd. I think. Yeah,
and it's a Wednesday night too.
Yeah,
and it's a Wednesday night when kids are still in school. So 50,000. I don't know how that's going to work, because it's hard to figure that out. I think that on the walk-up sales, absolutely, because they have statistics on that. When they go to pay somebody, they have the numbers of when the individual is pitching and how much attendance spikes. Obviously, on the secondary market, it must be through the roof. But I mean, as far as the single game tickets, there's no question they have that information. And when you hear of these signings, sometimes if you dig deeper, they'll have that available. Somebody will write it up or what have you, broadcast it. So I think the long way of saying is the answer is absolutely yes.
Bees beat the Sugarland Space Cowboys 8-3 in the series opener. They play again tonight, 6:35. Tony Park's on the call at 6:20 on 1280 The Zone. The Utah Mammoth will be over on 97.5 The Zone. DJ and PK.
#golf.
The LIV Tour insists they will finish their current season despite reports that Saudi Arabia's public investment fund is set to withdraw its financial backing for the golf tour after sinking billions into it. They started it up in 2022. LIV Golf in Mexico this week for the 6th tournament of the season.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just hasn't taken off. I've watched a couple of them. They've been on late Saturdays when they're overseas. Mm-hmm. And it's not during the football season or college football season. It's NBA season and into baseball season. But other than that, it's like, oh, I stumbled on it as I'm flicking around. Now, you just said it's in Mexico, so I have no idea where in the country. I just don't think it's taken off. It reminds me of two things. It reminds me of going to spring training, late in spring training, where the regulars, they're not getting one at bat and then taking off because you're getting real close to the season. So they are playing hard. They're trying to accomplish it, but it doesn't really count for anything. What counts is forthcoming, or these things that you have. They'll have like an LPGA player and a PGA player in Florida in December, or a father and son, those types of things. We've had a couple of them in our state. They used to have them, and we would go down to Thanksgiving Point and interview Jack Nicklaus. We had Annika Sorenstam on the show, and some other Johnny Miller came on, blah, 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 right? And so it's golf, and they're big names, but they're just not really playing for anything beyond the opportunity to play, which is awesome, but it's not. There's nothing in the record books that's really, you're playing for a second Masters, you're playing for the Grand Slam, whatever it might be, or these signature events. And they've got one in Hilton Head this week, a course that I've been to. And because I've been to that course, I'm going to watch it. And there's some decent names playing. And just, it doesn't really ring the way you want competition to ring.
And when they do send the top LIV players to the majors, they haven't performed great. They haven't won. They haven't. I think that's really recently been that many top fives and top tens, let alone that many victories. And as Bob Casper said last week, it's also trending in the wrong direction. It's like guys aren't the longer they play LIV and the further they get away from the PGA Tour, the worse the results get.
Well, I don't know if that would continue, though. I wonder if that's cyclical, because in the beginning that wasn't the case.
Yeah. They're getting better TV deals now, but they didn't have anything when they started, and that's where most of these sports leagues are getting most of their money. So it doesn't look good whether it ends now or ends at the at the end of the year. DJ and PK.
#NHL.
Game 82, the Utah Mammoth, St. Louis Blues. The season ends. The puck drops at 5:30. The Mammoth know they're going to play the Vegas Golden Knights because Vegas won the Pacific Division last night by beating Seattle 4-1. So this is a formality. On to the playoffs, PK. It'll be Utah and Vegas.
Good. That's what I wanted. I'm excited for when it gets started.
What is Trending is brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. DJ and PK coming up. Mike Weir is going to join us next. Cole Bagley's here to talk playoffs at 9:30. Caleb Kanales, Weber State men's basketball coach, at 9. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
I told you we went to this country writers thing in Nashville where you saw these different people that write hits. But mixed in the middle was this old timer. He sang a song about his dog dying. I'm not kidding. Like there were people going, play a happy song, like yelling at this guy.
Be happy.
Be happy. Guy played like 3 songs and everybody was like, oh, I'm so depressed. Yeah. You know what? Read the room.
Yeah, right.
By the way, and he said before he sang the dog dying song, he's like, nobody's picked this one up. I can't figure it out. I can. The song was called For Pete's Sake, and the dog was named Pete.
It's a little on the nose.
I'm just coming to this theater to rock out on some country I barely like, and they got to sing about a dog dying.
Dying dog, for Pete's sake.
Oh, it's so bad. So bad, dude.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We are joined now by former Masters winner Mike Weir, joining us from the Senior PGA Championship, Bradenton, Florida, the Concession Golf Club just south of Tampa. Mike, good morning.
Morning, fellas.
Golf is changing nonstop. And I heard the announcement from the PGA Tour, all this talk about redoing the schedule and taking weeks off majors. The senior majors are already a big deal, but you might start getting an open spot in the calendar, Mike. They could become an even bigger deal.
Yeah, no, it is changing the tour. I mean, I've listened into some of the changes from our new commissioner, Brian Rolap, and I like the changes with the no cut policy and having do away with those and having these events that they all have cuts and there's a little bit bigger fields. There's not these limited field events where, these players, if you're at a certain level, you get in those and you can just gain such an advantage over the rest of the tour if you're in those compared to a guy who's not in those, and it's hard to play catch up. So I think that's going to be a good change.
Mike, I think the most important question I can ask you right now is how was the Masters Champions Dinner menu? Because the same guy is going to put it on again next year.
Yeah, exactly. It was great this year. I'd be okay if he chooses the same thing. He had these elk sliders as an appetizer as we sat out on the balcony and had a drink before we went in for dinner, and they were awesome. That's what I served as my main course was elk. So I think it was the first time since I served that 2003 that elk was on the menu anywhere. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, he did a great job. I mean, he said some great things, great words. Gary Player and Jack Nicklaus both got up and said some great things. They're the only, Rory now joined them as the only three Grand Slam champions in that room. So it was good to hear from all three guys.
Americans tend to eat on the go, and the Masters, when you see all the different courses in that, for my in-laws' 50th anniversary, we went on a cruise to Alaska, and you have these days at sea, and it seems like the dinner and the courses is spread out over like 2 or 3 hours, just kind of keep people entertained while they're on the ship at sea in that. And when you talk about that at the Masters, and I see the photos and hear the reports on that, the courses and all that, I mean, the dinner, is it really an evening? Are you spending 2, 3, 4 hours together?
Yeah, it's a couple hours. I mean, we get there. Most guys kind of roll in right around 6 to 6:30, maybe at the latest, and we, everybody just kind of has a drink and catches up with one another. And I get to have a conversation with Jack Nicklaus and Mark O'Meara and Nick Faldo and some of the international guys I play with in the President's Cup, like Hideki and Adam Scott, and we just kind of catch up. That's the one thing about Augusta that's great. You see familiar faces that you might not see all year. At least from my perspective, playing the Champions Tour, I get to see, players that play the regular tour that I don't get to see them anymore, and so that's great. For me, the President's Cup, President's Cup players that I played with and that I actually captained in 2024 to catch up with those guys, and so that's a great part of the Masters, and especially the Tuesday night dinner, and then that generation of Nicklaus and Ray Floyd and Tom Watson, guys that I've always admired. You get a chance to chat with them, and that's the most special thing for me on that Tuesday evening.
Yeah, that is just so cool. I can only imagine that would just be a fantasy to be able to just be inside the, that what they say, the fly on the wall, because golf, the way it connects the past with the present is really unparalleled in all of sports. And as somebody who's a golf fan, to have you be able to say, yeah, I was talking with Jack and I was talking with Gary Player. I mean, we're talking about one guy who's 90 and another guy's 86 years old, and you're having conversations and you have things in common. It just blows me away knowing that could happen every year. And it's the one place at the Masters, which is, for me, it's almost like a religious experience. If I had ever had been there and be able to experience, just to walk the grounds, which I've not done. Now, as we watched the tournament, there was a lot of talk about the conditions of the course. What did you make of them?
Yeah, the course was very healthy. It was in phenomenal condition, best I've seen it in a long, long time. It did play tough, firm, fast, especially hole locations that were on the elevated part of the greens, kind of up on a knoll, a little hump on top. If the pin was sitting up there, those spots get exposed with a little bit of wind and in the great weather that we had that week. So those areas got even extra firm. It was tough to hold the ball around the green, around the pin in those locations. So that played quite tough when the pins were in some of those locations. But I thought it was a fair test, a tough test. I thought they did a great job with the setup. Ended up being a great championship. It looked like maybe Rory was going to run away with it on Friday, but as things seem to happen around there, it always seems to even itself out and end up being a great championship.
He's halfway to his second career slam. There's only two guys who pulled that off. He's sitting on 6 majors with some legendary names right in front of him at 7, 8, and 9, and only 3 guys have ever got to 10. Sometimes we're prisoners of the moment and the expectations get too high. Sometimes we dismiss people and what they're capable of too quickly, especially if they're doing something unusual that hasn't been done very often. Excuse me. What do you think the expectations should be for the rest of his career, knowing he's got at least 5 and maybe 10 years to rack up even more majors?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to look at Rory's game and have high expectations. It's such a pleasing game to watch, I would say. He just plays, unlike maybe a lot of the modern day players who are quite technical and maybe overanalyze everything. Rory plays with a sense of freedom. And I think it's just, as a golf fan, watching him play, I love players that play with that kind of freedom. I wish, envious of, I wish I could play with that much freedom. I tend to overthink things too much. So, but I think, the talent's evident. So the expectations are high. I think, having kind of checked that box of the Grand Slam now, you hope that, inside mentally he is freed up and can just kind of play with house money and keep racking up these majors. I hopefully he doesn't have any injuries. I hopefully he stays healthy. And when you have ball speed like that, can hit it that far, and the rest of your games keeps getting refined as he gets a little bit older. His wedge game was maybe a weakness of his. Now it's not. His pitching, his putting. That's all that part of his game has sharpened up so much in the last couple of years. So. Before he won the Masters in 2025, he was really contending in a lot of tournaments and had some setbacks and some heartbreaks. And now he kind of got over the hump. So I suspect he's going to, take that confidence of getting it done now the last couple of times he's been in contention and, maybe ride that wave here for a few years.
One of the things I find is kind of weird with golf, and obviously you've been in that position, maybe you'll be in that position this weekend in Florida, is you're playing and you're competing against guys, but you don't necessarily know how they're doing because they may be 2 or 3 holes ahead or behind, but you can hear cheers and all that. When you're in the middle of it and the Masters that you won, you needed to go into extra holes. How do you deal with that in terms of, I wonder what player XYZ is doing? I hear a cheer. Or can you just knock that stuff out of your mind and being focused literally on the shot in front of you and not worry about where the leaderboard is because it's something you don't know nor can you control?
Yeah, it's a great point. You definitely feel the surge of energy, and not only in your own game, but if you do hear Aurora ahead, it kind of hits you internally, and it's, I think, just human nature to wonder what happened. Was that a eagle or birdie or something ahead? But you just don't want it to take away from what you're doing in the moment. Jack Nicklaus, was famous for just compartmentalizing and saying, I can't control what the other guys are doing. I have to stay in my own little bubble here. And it's easier said than done, but that's what we try to do as players, is really focus on what we're doing. For myself, I know the type of player I am. I'm not an overpowering guy. I can't, all of a sudden think, I'm 2 behind, I'm going to attack this par 5 and try to get to this par 5 and 2. That's not playing my game. My game, I have to hit great wedges, and especially if we're talking about Augusta, you have to hit great wedges and attack par 5s that way. This course this week, it might be a little bit different. A senior PGA, the courses aren't quite as long, so I can do that maybe a little bit more, but PGA Tour courses, I could never do that. I had to just stick to my strategy and, you feel those waves of emotion from other groups, from other players, but you just kind of compartmentalize and just stick to your game and execute your game plan.
It was interesting coming down the stretch as Scotty Scheffler started to get closer and closer, and he made a big putt. And the announcers on the broadcast are like, Rory heard that. What he doesn't know is if that was a birdie or an eagle. That could have been an eagle. It wasn't. It was a birdie. And so does that even impact you when you're standing over a putt thinking, hey, I just got to get down in 2 from here, I'm 25 feet away or whatever, or thinking I really got to go for it, which, brings its own risk. You might leave yourself a really difficult second putt going for it.
Yeah, I'm sure it affected Rory. That was a heck of a birdie Scotty made. He hit it in the trees right and then pitched out, hit a tree, and he was still in the trees. Somehow managed to birdie on 15. That's what Scotty seems to do. But I remember Nicklaus, and I believe it may have been in the 70s sometime, and I think it was Weiskopf and Watson were standing on 15 green, and Jack rolled in this big putt up the hill on, I think it was 1975, a long time ago, but he rolled this 40-footer up the hill in on 16. The crowd's going crazy, and those guys had to wait as the crowd, kind of calmed down before they could hit their putts on 15. And so those things do matter, and they do have an impact on leaders and the mindset. You might think you have it in the bag, and then some guy chips in on you, or makes a long putt, and it can have an effect. It can rattle you. It can kind of maybe even get you more focused on what you have to do, but depends on the moment, I guess, depends on the player on how it affects them.
So now we've had 2 guys in the last pairing on Sunday saying, man, he didn't say anything to me. You had Young this year and DeChambeau last year, I think it was, and Roy's not a talkative guy. When you go out there, are you going to be yucking it up with Vijay Singh, or is it standard that you just keep to yourself?
This stage of the game in our 50s, we probably talk a little bit more. I would say that, in my day on the tour, I was pretty into my own game and didn't say much, and kind of had to have the blinders on, so to speak, to play my best golf. You got to know what works for you. A Lee Trevino type guy who has to talk, and that keeps his energy loose, where Nicklaus might not say much, or Ben Hogan might not say much. I might not say much. You got to just know your personality, I think. But, at this stage of the game for me, I've known VJ a long time. We're good friends. Yeah, we'll be talking. He doesn't know hockey very well, so we can't talk hockey. But maybe he loves his cricket. Maybe he's from Fiji and rugby and cricket.
He won't drop any Mammoth.
When you're out on the road, how much can you follow the Utah Mammoth? The NHL is here now. The arena is packed. People are going nuts. They're going to play Vegas in the playoffs. We don't have the schedule yet. You got to finish the regular season, play this last game, and then we'll get the playoff schedule. How much are you tracking that?
Oh yeah, I'm following it closely. I'm excited we're playing Vegas. Weren't sure who we were going to play there, but seems like a natural rivalry there. Down the I-15. Seems like whenever we play them in the regular season, there's a bit of an edge to those games. And get ready, Utah. Playoff hockey is the best. It is so awesome, so intense. It's been part of my life since I was a kid. Watching Detroit Red Wings, which were my team close to where I grew up, and now we have it in Utah. I'm super excited. Can't wait for it to get started.
Were you a few months ago at the Sandy post office? I understand you were badgered by some lady. Is that true?
That's right. That is true. Your wife came up and introduced herself. That's right. Exactly.
And she said she was starstruck. I said, why didn't you tell him who you were? I said, he probably remembered the old guy he played golf with, and maybe you could have a conversation.
Yeah,
she couldn't get it. She couldn't get out the words.
That's funny.
Last thing before we let you go, you mentioned, in the 50s, a different attitude. You're 55 now, and how long do guys play senior golf? What is your plan for that, or at least what is your goal for that? Because we tend to see guys that are fresh into the senior tour at 50, 51 have the most success. I haven't really tracked how long guys tend to stay out there. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody. Obviously you have the benchmark with Bernard Longer still playing great is mid-late 60s. I think he's 68 now and still playing great golf and still wants to play and is competitive and loves to compete. I mean, I still feel that. I still feel like I'm motivated and want to practice and work at my game and love to work at it. If that goes away and I want to be home more, that's what I'll do. But right now I'm still motivated and still healthy. Lately, my last couple of years, my back's been great. So I've been able to practice a little bit more. And so I'm still enjoying myself. It's an enjoyable time out there. So, if I can play into my early 60s, that would be awesome. I hope so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we'll be tracking you out there at the Senior PGA Championship, Bradenton, Florida, the Concession Golf Club. And we'll see how you do, Mike. People are still following you here. Thanks for jumping on the air and talking to some of your fans.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Mike Weir, Masters champ, joining us from Bradenton, Florida. And PK, fly on the wall. How awesome would it be?
It would be the thrill of a lifetime.
Leaning on a post on that balcony, just watching people talk. And over the years, and Mike, we didn't get into it this time. I think he's talked about it other times he's been on. He got to meet Jack Nicklaus when he was 11 years old. And now 44 years later, he gets to go to a champions dinner with him. That is so cool. That is just awesome.
Right. Yeah, the story is, and he's told it to me several times, that he wrote Jack when he was a young boy about how to be a professional golfer, and Jack wrote back. That's just amazing. And there he is, rubbing shoulders, listening to him talk. He just dropped Watson, Weiskopf, Ben Hogan, these, those other guys that they know. And to be able to go there. I asked him one time on the air, if you had a choice, Mike, would you rather go to the champions dinner or heaven? And he laughed at the question, because
What's
that
the
is
difference?
heaven. That's heaven on earth. You're getting both
Right.
there. And to be in that exclusive club, and they take that picture every year. I mean, that's just got to be something that's just as unbelievable. We see it like the Baseball Hall of Fame when they have those inductions. I think it's like the last Sunday in July, right? And the guys talking, and in the back are all the living Hall of Famers who want to be there and have the health to be there. And you look at Frank Robinson, whoever they might be, and you see those guys, these legends of the game that are still living. And that's what you have in golf there, and that dinner. And it's such a cool tradition. I mean, I can argue that is the coolest tradition among players, that, not playing the Hell's Bells when Trevor Hoffman comes in or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I'm talking about an actual player thing. That is just so awesome. And to know that he's a part of that and he's a Masters winner, it's wow. I mean, obviously as a golfer, that's got to be the ultimate, and to be able to experience that, so cool.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, we delayed the question of the day, hot takes or toast. We got a couple of them up, actually. We're going to get to those, the big issues, the Jazz, what are the goals going forward, what has to happen next season, and reaction to the Cougars. Is that roster certainly not finished, but it is definitely coming into focus with a couple of additions, couple of names that are saying, yep, I'm in for a year at the Marriott Center. We will get to that coming up. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We just had Mike Weir on. Get that wherever you get your podcasts. If you missed it, if you're just getting in the car and just joining us now, Mike was great talking about golf. And it's great to hear him talk about Rory McIlroy. And listening to him talk about Rory reminded me of the discussion about Shohei. PK, it's like sports is something to do. And that's great, right? You always talk about the Jazz, what a great way to pass a cold winter night, whether they're rebuilding or whether they're going to the NBA Finals and playing Jordan. On a night in January, the season's still unfolding. It's a great way to pass a night. And celebrity certainly sells. There's drama and rivalries and all that. But there's just a certain magic when you're watching one of the all-timers, or in the case of you last night, watching the all-timer. I mean, he's got to actually win the Cy Young, and then the door is slammed, and like Shohei's the guy. He's just the guy in a way that nobody argues about Jerry Rice, nobody argues about Wayne Gretzky. He's the guy. But even if he's second or third in the Cy Young voting, it still feels like you're watching the guy, doesn't it? I mean, it's just there's certain, and that's where Rory is with these all-timers. Now, is he going to catch Jack? No. But is he going to end? There's a chance he's going to end up with the third or fourth most major titles in his career. He's already top 15, and he's got another decade to go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, how he adjusts to life because life gets in the way. We've talked about it with the LPGA ladies who have had big time success, but want to get married and have a family. Michelle Wee's supposed to play here. And they're like, okay, where you've been? Well, she's had 2 kids. She's married to Jerry West's son. And so life, how do you deal with that and be able, and Jack Nicklaus, I was too young to remember when he was having a young family. Obviously he was able to do still great things on the course, and he's got the boys and the kids and all that stuff. How does Rory deal with all this stuff? Because he's taken it to another level. He's already at an extremely high level, but now he's raised it to where, at least right now, he is the face of golf. And I realize Scheffler is right there too. But if I'm choosing between the two, particularly because of what happened in the last year, I'm going Rory. That doesn't mean Scheffler can't get back or somebody else can rise up here. Who knows what it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. And with that comes a certain level of responsibility. We saw, obviously, Jack was the distinguished face of golf. Arnold Palmer was a big-time celebrity. And Tiger's had some issues with it, clearly, obviously, embarrassing. It hasn't really worked well for him, unfortunately. And to what level is that addiction with issues and pain pills and whatnot? And he's going through something right now as we speak. How is Rory going to be able to handle all that? And how did this affect his game? Now, for Tiger, it didn't affect his game at all when he was in his prime. How's it going to be for Rory? How's he going to handle this? It's not newfound, but I really believe it's another level of literally being the face of the sport that is played by millions and millions across the world. And how does he handle that?
And all those quotes, and when Tiger was really starting to roll, Jack said, well, but you just can't come home at the age of 30 and stare at trophies, right? And then there's a family, and then there's demands. We saw that with Tiger. Jordan Spieth just had a quote earlier this year. He's like, well, I'm married, and they got, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 kids.
He's got 3.
3 kids, 3 kids, and I'm married, and I get to play golf part-time. And he got to laugh with it. It was a joke, and he was going for the joke. But there's some truth in that. He's not winning the way he did when he was single, and all he had to do was focus on the next tournament, and whatever he was doing with his swing or his putting. So right. It's just different. And Rory has been the face all through this stuff with the LIV and all that. I mean, he's had to do a lot of press conferences and talk about the sport and the LIV and the relationship with the guys who've stayed and the relationships with the guys who've gone and putting it together again. And sometimes it's been controversial, and all that stuff weighs on you and is distracting. And
I wonder if, and it would never happen, but I wonder if I would like that. I get uncomfortable when people give me attention. But is he got to be holed up in his house now? And somebody like a Justin Rose, I think, probably can walk freely down the street. But Rory can't. Someone's going to notice him, if not the entire crowd is going to notice him. And how do you handle all that? That's got to be somewhat smothering. I know Tiger would go in Park City because he had some people up here that he would visit, and he had some medical people, and he'd go, and because I knew somebody who owned the place, and he'd rent out the entire place in Park City on Main Street and have it to himself, the whole thing to himself or whoever he invited, so nobody would bother him. That sounds kind of odd, but that's the price you pay for this level of success and the fame that comes attached with it.
And as much as Rory is the guy, Scheffler does have 4 majors. And when we get to the U.S. Open, the conversation is going to be about him. Can he win the Open and complete his career slam? Because he has the Masters, and he has the PGA, and he's got the Open Championship. So we're just we're less than, I guess we're almost exactly 2 months away from the U.S. Open, and that'll be the story. And if he gets it, then he's got a career slam, and he's got 5, and it is on with those 2 guys.
So, well, I think he will get it at some point. I don't know if it's this June, but I think it's coming.
Yeah. All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. BYU putting together a roster. The Jazz are chasing playoffs, whether they want to say it or not. We'll get to that next. Stay with us. Join Scotty G today from noon to 3 at RGS Exteriors, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. Got a question up on our Facebook page about your Utah Jazz. Now, Will Hardy was reluctant to talk about the playoffs in his postseason press conference, but some of the players had no problem addressing them. Is it playoffs or bust? And the people weighing in largely think, yes, it's playoffs or bust. That's it. Bill actually lists his top 10 next year, and he's got the Jazz at number 5, behind San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Denver, and the Lakers, and in front of Minnesota, Houston, and Portland, as well as Golden State and the Clippers. So he's got his list. He's got his expectations, and Michael says if the Jazz don't make the playoffs next year, they underachieved. Brady says if they make the play-in games, that's 20 more wins, 42-40. I'll take that. You and I have already talked about this. Mathematically, yes, it'll be 20 more wins, but we know they gave away at least 10, possibly as many as 12 or 15 wins this year with the lineups they played and the decisions they make and the guys they sat. So 42-40 will feel like a 5 or 10 game improvement to me and to you. But I'm with all these people. It has to be next year for Utah, Gary says. I think it does. They've made a big trade. Presumably they're going to make more moves. It is playoffs. And, if the coach doesn't want to say it when he gets the question at 8 a.m. the morning after the season ends, well, he can punt it down the road. But by the time we get to next fall, I think everybody's going to be on the same page.
Yeah, when the season ended on the West Coast, no less.
Right.
So he's probably working on 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And he can anticipate the questions. He's a smart dude. And so don't pin me down now because there's so much to add to the roster,
right,
and a draft pick and everything and the things that will happen. When we get to September, when the players start coming back in September, that's the roster, and they'll have tryouts and all in camp, but we'll know largely who the guys are. And I just look at the talent of the team. I don't really look at right now, for argument and discussion's sake, worry about the other teams in the West. They'll be who they'll be, and we'll see, because you don't know what the Lakers are going to do with LeBron. We have no idea as far as that goes. So it's impossible.
Who's Denver going to put around Jokic? What's their roster?
Yeah, you're handicapping rosters today when that's not going to be the case. Now for the Jazz, except for a draft pick and maybe some other guys, you get a Joe Johnson type guy to come in here and do what he did. That would be awesome. But I'm just looking at the guys that they have right now who are under contract. And that obviously doesn't include Kessler, but I want to include him. Hopefully he is included, or somebody of that caliber is included. I think it will be. And the talent level is just too much to not make the postseason. I really believe in the talent level, right? You've got accomplished guys. You got 2 guys at the top that are accomplished in this league. And I realize Markkanen has yet to play a playoff game, but the guy's got talent. There's a guy that I've been watching since college, and I knew of him, and because I actually had heard of him before he got to the U of A, because the Utah people were saying, yeah, we're going to probably get him, and Arizona did what it did to get him over there. So I've been aware of this youngster literally since he was a teenager, and there's not many guys who have his size, his skill, and all that stuff, right? And then Jaren Jackson, he's a proven commodity. It speaks for itself. Remember him back in college. I got a Wooden Award, so I watched those types of guys, a Wooden Award vote. And so, known of him, and he's the real deal. Mm-hmm. And then you got to throw Keyonte right there. And obviously Ace Bagley is going to improve. He's probably going to improve for the next 3 to 4 years before there might be some type of leveling off. So when I look at that talent, it's not like it's overwhelming talent, but in my mind, it absolutely is a roster that has enough talent. If you just put this roster in, say the 26, 27 season started tomorrow, and these are the guys, and they're all healthy, and they're ready to go, and they re-signed Kessler, I would be stunned unless they had major injury, knock on wood, throw salt over your shoulder, jump on one foot, whatever you got to do to make sure you got good luck there when it comes to injury. I would be blown away if they didn't make the postseason. There would have to be something that would go just strangely wrong. The talent is there. And the final analysis, that's why I put it on the players. The coach's job is to coach them up and get as much out of the talent that is there. Jerry Sloan, the first year after the statues, squeezed every last drop out of that team. That's coaching. That's what that's about. putting your guys in the position to succeed. And Jerry did it as, in my mind, and I was here, we were all here. We had literal second row seats where they used to sit the media to watch him take a bunch of dudes that were nondescript and put them in position to succeed over and over again. And we can go down the list. There's like 7, 8 guys that we can name that, wow, of course, anybody can name the statues, but we're not talking about them. We're talking about those other guys. And he did that. And so to win after the coach does all that, it's on the players. And then I look at these players, and there's a lot of talent there. And talent wins in any league. And that's why I'm thinking, yeah, playoffs for sure.
I think Will said what he said for multiple reasons, and one of them could be 8 a.m. the morning after the last game after a flight back from the West Coast. But I also think, listening to Will's press conferences and going to a fair number of them over 4 years, that he is cut out of similar cloth to Pablo Mastroeni, and that he is going to want he's going to be saying things Pablo says about getting better every day. What are we doing this week? What are you doing this next game? To go with a results-oriented answer that is still a year away, or even in the fall that is 6 months away. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets that question again, and I wouldn't be surprised if his answer was, hey, we all know where we want to be in the spring, but you don't get where you want to be in the spring sitting around and talking about where you want to be in the spring. It's about every day. It's about every practice. It's about every game. It's about every time you step on the court. That's the kind of stuff Pablo says. And, we can bring Pablo on Fridays and get him to try to talk about playoffs. He wants to be in the playoffs. He expects to be in the playoffs. He did drop a line in an interview once somewhere about saying something about being between 3rd and 6th in the West, that's about where the roster looked like, now. And then he acknowledged there's a summer transfer window, there's injuries, there's young guys developing. You can't write that stuff in stone right now. I wouldn't be surprised if Will goes down that. And I also think inside the organization, big picture, what we're talking about is just an intermediate step. Will's thinking, and Austin Ainge is thinking about acquiring and all that, like, how do you coach these guys up so once you make the playoffs, you win when you get there? Because they inherited a team that could routinely go to the first or second round of the playoffs. They had a 6-year run. They win every year. 3 times they won in advance. 3 times they didn't win in advance. If you tear that up, which they did, if you make us sit through a 4-year rebuild, which they did, in the long run, you can't get the same results. That's not okay. That's not a good investment of time and resources. They tore it up because they want to go further. And at different times, Danny Ainge talked about it. At different times, I really appreciate Jay-Z. Jay-Z got out, and he just said it. And I don't really remember him being that prompted. Maybe it was a little bit by the question. But he just brought up, we've been in a conference final since 07. We're coming up on 20 years. And so when they talk about championship windows and opening it and keeping it open, winning a title is a tricky thing. I think it's 7 different teams in 7 years now. But being in the top 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams in the league and being in a legitimate conversation to win it, that's what they're holding themselves accountable. And that should yield a Western Conference final. So there's also a danger in talking about the playoffs as if that's the ultimate goal. No, that's what we talk about in college football. It's just a box you check on the way to where you want to go. Bowl eligible, good. Double-digit wins, good. But you got to get to the conference title game. You got to get to the playoff. You want to win when you get there. You got all these boxes to check. I don't think the Jazz have a lot of boxes to check. But the first one is get to the playoffs. And I'm with you. There's talent to do it. But there's young talent. It's got to get better every day because you want to win once you get there. They need to get back to the Western Conference Final. 20 years is a long time. We talk about the Jazz like they're an exemplary franchise and they've had all this success. And if you go big picture and you go back 50 years, it's true. But if you look at the last 10 years, the last 15 years, or the last 25 or 30, there's a lot of other teams that have had runs and you say, nah, we've done better than that. What are you talking about that for? The Jazz need to put together one of those runs.
Well, my mind and my response to what you're saying is that the talent is there for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't have to worry about what other teams are doing. Now, when I talk about conference finals, then I incorporate worrying about how good is team ABC because they could get there. In 88, the Jazz absolutely had a quality team capable of getting to the NBA finals, except there was one team that stood in the way. and
Right.
stood in the way many times for many people and many teams, right? And it
Right.
was hard to overcome, and they pushed the Lakers right to the brink. You couldn't be pushed anymore. So you incorporate that. Once you start saying, well, where do they stack up
Mm-hmm.
in terms of conference final? I think that's when you say, well, who's in the way? And right now, the Thunder and the Spurs have an extremely young nucleus.
Yep.
And it stands to reason the next 3 to 4 years, they're going to be in the way potentially.
Yeah.
But in terms of making the playoff, because there's so many teams
many
that
spots.
make it, it's not about who's in the way. We're just talking about making the playoffs. And absolutely, the coach's job is to push these guys and get them to be the best that they can be. And it sounds trite and cliche, but that's it. And that's the process. Whittingham talks about that a lot. Ultimately, the dudes out on the field and the court, they're the ones who've got to get it done. The Jazz did not win an NBA title because Jerry Sloan was in the way. No, I'll fight you if you say that. That's just not true whatsoever. They may have had some issues among the players, and then you had the opponent, and you factor that in. But the coach, it's a tricky thing. It's because you can't be ignorant and ignore the results, because that's what keeps you employed. But the coach's jobs and the staff's job is to be so focused on the process of what you need to do to be able to get there. And then when it's there, you got to seize it like Jordan did and all that stuff and all the other guys. So I understand why Will Hardy is saying what he's saying, because he's got all this other stuff to worry about. And he's got so many guys he's got to worry about. I mean, he is the CEO of the actual team. They've got a CEO of management, obviously, but he's the CEO of all these guys that are under him, from the coaches and the staff and the players, blah, blah, blah. And so he shouldn't really, especially now, he shouldn't be focused on that, because of the fact they have so many young guys. Now is the time, literally, and I guess you could put in Jackson and Markkanen too in that category, and they're the veterans, to go ahead and make the level of improvement. We know, listening to Keyonte George speak as much as he did, his improvement wasn't what started in October. No, it started right now. It started this time last year, and what he did mentally and physically to get himself in that position that leads us to believe this kid's a player in this league.
I think the thing about Will is, on the one hand, he's a young head coach, and he came here and it's 4 years of rebuilding, so we haven't seen anything. But his experience, when he gets hit like a question like that, he was in the Celtics organization. Before that, he was in the Spurs organization. They're all about deep playoff runs. And so although he wasn't in charge of making it happen, he sat right there and witnessed, and whatever his role was in whatever given year, he was a piece of the puzzle and he did his role. But he's seen what it takes. So he hears that question. He thinks, well, it takes a lot to do that, and then it's going to take more to win once we get there. Us sitting around talking about the playoffs all summer isn't going to get it done. That's not what's going to get there. But we're in a different role. As media or as fans, we've got that luxury. They have to do, like you said, Keyonte George made important decisions, both physically and psychologically, mentally last year, that paid off for him big time. But he had to make those decisions now. He couldn't be sitting around worried about, the end result. It's about the process that Whittingham talks of and that Mastrone and all these other coaches talk of. So, but I do think the goal next year needs to be playoffs, and you're right. The talent's there. It'd be surprising if it wasn't. And, to what degree, let's see which team decides to blow it up the way Memphis just did, trading Jaren Jackson, and who do the Nuggets put around Jokic? Because maybe they're only – I feel like the Nuggets are only because of Jokic's brilliance, they're not that far behind the Thunder and the Spurs. I don't think they're going to take them both down and go to the conference finals, but they could make one move this summer, and then they could be the it team. Who's to say? All right?
Jake,
all right,
rolling?
DJ and PK, it's 97.5.
Hold on a second, DJ. Hold on a second. I'm going to go Scotty G and friends. Jake, are you rolling on this?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Here we go.
We got
2026 27 Coach of the Year in the NBA, Will Hardy.
There it is. Mark it down.
You're rolling on that, Jake? You got that?
Nice.
That's your promo.
All right. When we come
I need
back,
a bit more than a 5-second
BYU
clip, by the way.
basketball. Yeah. The Cougars roster's coming into shape. You're starting to see how this is going to work. Who are the 7, 8, 9 guys who might be in a rotation? We can identify a couple more names. Let's get to that next. DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is JJ and Alex. I got this.
Travis Yost, our guest, he covers the NHL for TSN.
For the Mammoth, I think they're the fourth best team in the West. I think that they would be a likely favorite against Anaheim. They could be or should be a favorite in a series against Vegas. If the Mammoth close the season as we expect, by goal differential, this is the best team that has ever been on the ice for either the Utah or Phoenix, Arizona Coyotes franchise by goal differential this season right here, right now. This team absolutely should not be thinking we made it to the playoffs. What an accomplishment. At this point, considering how good the Mammoth have been, and I mean that, they really should be thinking, how do we go in and win a round in the playoffs? And I think if you've got Anaheim on the ice, even if you're the road team in that series, that's a matchup the Mammoth should want, and it's one they should win.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 7 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Well, the Cougar roster is starting to come into shape. Now we can name 4 or 5 guys who will probably play a bunch of minutes next year, PK. And there is some excitement over that. There are some people feeling pretty positive over that. But there's still work to be done. Rob Wright returns. Jake Wahlin commits. How you feeling about BYU basketball? Scott says, let's go with optimistic. But only because that's the way it is being a BYU fan. My yearly optimism and then a spectacularly flat first-round exit after so much buildup.
Well, if you
Scott's
go
already
from
kicking
point A to
himself
point
out of the
B
line.
with nothing in between there, I get where you're coming from because there was a ton of hype, and obviously it turned out to be a disappointment. There was obviously factors involved, but nevertheless, it turned out to be a disappointment because you're going to get the number 1 pick in the draft. And, obviously, I think Sean Bradley go 2 or 3, but he hadn't played for 2 years, and it was an unusual situation with a salary cap coming in and blah, blah, blah. And he made the right decision financially to do that. And here you get all these years later, somebody of that caliber who was a one and done in the more traditional way than Sean was. And so I get that's disappointment. But going forward, I feel a lot better about the roster today than I did this time last week, that I did earlier in the week. And there is still work to be done. The news for the Utes isn't good. Dawes is they're saying that he's going to go to Kansas. And that's a blow to Alex Jensen. And, I mean, they already knew he was in the portal. Hard to blame the kid running out of time here and would like to win and play in front of people. And you're not getting that either right now at Utah. It's sad. Hopefully they get it. BYU has that. And then you factor in this Bruce Branch kid. And, who knows? Who knows how Branch is going to be. I'm looking at draft stuff, and this happens every year. There's kids that nobody had. The Kingston kid from Houston being as good as he was for the Cougars this season and how he's just risen up the draft boards. And then you get some kids that in the beginning of the season, they're high on the draft board and slide. So Branch is thought of pretty high. I'm not so sure about these 4 and 5 stars. That's been weird for me. And I was going to ask you guys if you noticed this, and Jake too can chime in, that, man, I see so many of these kids that, he was a former 4-star and he's played 2 years and he's averaging 3 points and 2 boards. Are they handing out stars a little more liberally these days? It just seems like there's so many of them. He's a 4-star, and it just doesn't have any game.
Yeah, 150% they are. Because it's more about you can buy the stars anymore than just that's what it is.
And I don't care about stars. When you transfer and you're in your 3rd year, it's like, what'd you do in your first 2 years? If that matters, and you can argue it doesn't because it's like grade inflation in school, okay, then, but by the time you're 2 years in, it doesn't matter. What can you do? And they're bringing Jake back. He was at the U for a couple years, and he plays about 20 minutes. He grabs 4 or 5 rebounds. You need guys like that. You need guys who can come in and play 20 minutes and grab 4 or 5 rebounds. But if you think he's going to play 35 minutes and go 20 and 10, you probably set your expectations in the wrong place, And I don't remember what was said about him coming out of high school. But at this point, you ought to judge him on maybe not what he did as a freshman because now he's going into his fourth year, but what did he do as a sophomore and a junior? Well, that's kind of the neighborhood he's been in. That's about where I'd expect him. Maybe you can get a little more out of him. Certainly he gets a little more playing time. You expect his stats to go up. But they got 1-6-10 guy. We got a ton of people here people saying, basically saying, so far, so good. But David says, like a donut, something's missing in the middle. Nate, I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. We still have to fill our biggest need, physical big men. I trust that Young will fill out the rest of the roster nicely. And Jesse says it should be good, but no way of knowing how Branch and Ruckert will do. Plus, we need to see what else BYU brings in. Antonio wants someone with a baby hook who can score at the rim, rebound, and block shots. Nothing fancy. Maybe they need 2 of those guys. So, more bigs. They got 1, need more. Well, they got 2.
I don't think there's any
we'll see how he plays. He's really skinny. He's young. Is he going to be more perimeter-oriented? In high school, he was more face-up and shoot a 3 or drive to the hoop. There wasn't a lot of back-to-basket there when I watched him.
Yeah. I mean, and the game has changed with the back-to-the-basket.
It has.
I mean, that's sort of – it's not obsolete, but it's just so not even close to the prominence that it used to be. So I'm not really concerned about that level. I want some interior guys that at least to be a threat, because in order to have spacing, you have to have guys who are capable of doing something with the ball, because if they're not, then spacing can get totally out of whack. And, we saw that towards the end of the season where AJ was getting double teamed 35 feet from the basket. I mean, sitting there, press row, center court against Texas, you could see it, man. Because you're there, you don't have to rely on a TV camera, and you could see the double team coming. You could see Sean Miller clearly. This is something that they didn't have a lot of time to practice, but they practiced it, and they probably had to do it in the SEC to an extent, and so they were aware of the concepts. And BYU at that time didn't have enough guys who can make the defense pay for that type of alignment. And that's why I think that you have Kevin Young in the bowels of the Moda Center saying the Holy Grail is shooting, and he's got to get shooters. So they're probably not going to get the offense to a guy that is going to have a back to the basket and you're going to throw the ball into him and he's going to go to work, as they say, because that doesn't really exist that much. Now, what you need, and we saw this with Michigan and their big kid, that, lobs, pick and rolls, stuff that's available on the penetration, you see that more than just throwing it in and he backs himself in. I'm not saying you don't need that. It's just that those players are hard to come by. They need some threats of interior scoring, and they haven't had it for 2 years. Got by to the Sweet 16 the first year, but this past season it was woefully weak. Now they got to go get it. They got to get some dudes who can do that. And if Foose did that, he's obviously an undersized guy. Even for college, he was undersized, but he gave you everything he had. And so find those types of guys. If you can get, I agree. I think it was DJ, you said too, that they got to get that and find those guys.
Yeah. Yep.
And if they get that, then I think they're on their way and they can be competitive in the Big 12. And I mean, they were competitive to an extent this year, but I'm talking about finishing in the top 5, because clearly you finish the top 5 in this conference, you're going to get a decent seed in the NCAA tournament. So the encouraging part is that Kevin Young, you got to admire his ability to recruit. I mean, you can't deny it, right? And we'll see. He'll get better as far as his ability to coach guys, but you got to have the guys in the first place. And right now, he's pretty good at selling what BYU has to offer. And I know the critics are going to howl money. Yeah, all right. You got me there.
Well, you better have it. You're not getting them if you don't have it.
Right. And they got it and use it, and they're in it to win it. And to me, it's not unbecoming of a church school. It's actually, if you're going to have a basketball program, if you're going to have a women's cross country program, strive to be excellent. If you're going to have a softball program, and the list goes on and on, whatever sport you have, what's the point of having it if you're not going to try to win? I mean, that's sort of a lesson in life, the winners succeed, right? That's why they're winners. And so whatever it is, try to be the very best you can be. And this is what basketball costs these days. It's outrageous. I agree. It's insane. It's crazy. But that's the reality of it. So what's the point of sitting here and saying, oh, this can't be sustained? Sure, it can't, I don't think. But so what? Right now it is
now. Right.
Yeah.
And maybe if it can't be sustained, if there's donor fatigue everywhere and everybody's price drops, well, then you can still be competitive, and maybe guys are making, $1 million instead of $3 million. At $3 million,
well, that's the great
crazy.
thing about BYU, that donor fatigue. Right now, there's somebody in the 9th grade at Timpview who's going to be a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur. And he's going, or maybe she is going to be a big-time BYU fan. We're just getting started here, man. BYU is going to lead the charge in entrepreneurs jock sniffing and paying millions to be part of the team. Yeah. And they ought to have it. I think they ought to give those guys more stature. Entrepreneur row at the Marriott Center. Let's put those guys front and center, right?
Basically what
and
it is.
They
it's
each
entrepreneur row plus Danny Ainge at the end. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm talking about the front row. That's the second row.
No.
Unless they want to be, if they want to be a skosh higher, it's up to them where they want to be.
If you look over on that one baseline, that's also entrepreneur row. They've got multiple areas.
Wrap it around.
Yeah.
Wrap it around the court.
Well, I think they ought to shine on them, the camera on them. And get this, they each have their own individual waiter or waitress. Not, that's your section. No, you've got your own personal one, and they attend to your every need during the game.
No. You're old school. You've got to advance with the times. There's not going to be waiters and waitresses. There's going to be drones delivering food and beverages courtside. They'll just zoom the drone in and zoom the drone out. You're not going to have people blocking views.
No. Entrepreneurs, they thrive on personal contact.
No, this is entrepreneurial spirit from DJ. The drone thing is absolutely it.
Okay, how about this? PK wants a personal contact. You've got a drone that's like carrying someone by the shoulders and flying the waiter and waitress in.
There we go.
Hey, you got to be on the cutting edge here.
I mean, now you're getting
what the
silly.
next
You're
round of
mocking me.
17-year-olds is going to expect in recruiting.
You're mocking me now, and I don't appreciate that. No.
Okay. The mocking only goes one way on this show. It's almost 25 years, and at 25 years, the worm turns, my man.
Haven't you learned the role here, DJ? Come on now. Let's go.
It's about time.
But at 25 years,
mocking only goes one way.
Shuffle and rotate.
Okay, but we're not there yet. We still got time. I'll agree with you. At
PK,
25,
you complete
we can
me.
mix it up.
I forgot about
and
that.
It's like these boxer gals that come out and hold the cards. So they come out. And I'm not saying they're scantily clad. That's not the BYU way. No way. No. Okay. So let's just get that out of the way. But they got these cards that you are the server for this entrepreneur. And they really build it up. And they've got their names there, right? Whoever it might be. And make it more prominent so that they aspire to be a BYU entrepreneur. You too can outfit the money to get the Rob Wrights of the world, right? And then have actually like they can be personal endorsers.
Yeah.
So when it's senior night, the entrepreneur comes out with the mom and dad and the player.
Hey,
insert player name sponsored by this entrepreneur.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
One last serious thought before we go to break. You said Dawes to Kansas. Was there a part of you that wondered if he was going to do the Kebakeda and go to BYU from Utah?
Oh, there was a decent
the size, the 3-point shooting.
Yeah.
Like, is this going to happen? Now, obviously, we're in our little bubble here and we look at these schools, and obviously his size and his shooting is on display for the whole country. So,
yeah.
Kansas, so be it. But
essentially, he went to a Kansas-like situation.
Mm-hmm.
Sold out arenas, good football, good basketball program, blah blah blah. Yeah. So good for him if that's what he wanted. Bad for Utah, but good for him. I would have preferred he stayed in state, and I want all the locals to win. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, your Utah Mammoth are playoff bound, and they're going to face the Vegas Golden Knights. We will get the playoff schedule after they play the last regular season game tonight. They should be putting that together. Some of the matchups are already set. We know Dallas is going to play Minnesota, and we know Utah is going to play Vegas. We will talk about all of this, the playoffs, the matchup, what is the key going to be in this series. We'll do that coming up with Cole Bagley at 9:30. Weber State basketball coach Caleb Kanales joins us at 9 o'clock. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Christian's never seen Almost Famous because you and I are both ancient. One of the best movies ever. And Earl is the lead singer. Jason Lee.
Jason Lee, who started his career as a professional skateboarder. Did you know that? He's like one of the greatest skateboarders of all time. And was like, I'm going to shift into being a big-time actor.
Scientologist.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, cool.
What do you mean? Isn't it a well-known fact that Jason Lee is a Scientologist?
I just thought it was a little irrelevant to the story, but
well known to one out of the three of us.
I don't know. I was thinking of all the things that I know about Jason Lee. Ben dropped this skateboarder thing in there, which seemed fairly fascinating. I just happen to know the guy's a Scientologist. That's all.
What are you implying? About Jason Lee today.
What are you saying? I wasn't saying anything negative about him. I just pointed it out. Scientologist.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, you ready for some playoffs, PK? We're not getting them in the NBA, but we're getting them in the NHL. Cole Bagley will be here at 9:30. It's Utah and Vegas. We had Mike Weir on earlier this morning. He talked a lot of golf. He talked a little hockey. Playoff hockey is the best, says the Canadian. And he noted, why not an I-15 series? They're not in the same division, but it ought to be a rivalry, so here we go.
Oh, we hate the Knights. They hate
us. They played 3 times this year. They didn't actually have any really close competitive games. Vegas won easily once, and Utah won easily twice. And 2 of those 3 games were back in November, so everything changes since November. So bring it on.
And I've known the media guys in Vegas for many, many years, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. And there was always a sense of jealousy in Vegas for what we had in Salt Lake or in Utah, because we had college football at an extremely high level. And then one of our teams got to go into the Pac-12, which upped the jealousy. And they were sitting there with Vegas playing in an old stadium before, 10,000 people getting their brains beat out. Things have changed now with the stadium, right? And things have changed dramatically. I mean, look at, they've got the Raiders, they've got the Knights, baseball. How in the heck did Vegas get baseball, man? That just seemed like, why?
Paid for a stadium.
Why did they get baseball?
How'd they get football? They paid for a stadium. That's it.
I know, but football is a little bit different in terms of, just the nature of the sport. You don't have as many games
to sell. Right. It's an event.
And basketball, they want to, and I've got no problem with Seattle, but now all of a sudden Vegas is going to have everything. So now are we jealous of them? Well, what we can do is have the Mammoth go in there and punk the crap out of them in the first round. Yeah. And when the Knights were just getting started there, I was going to Vegas a lot more than I do now. I had some reasons I had to be down there. And man, everybody and their dog was a Golden Knights fan. I went to a concert there one time, and the concert got over, and the hockey game, you go through the casinos and they got TVs all over the place now, and most of them have the sports on, and they had, this was an outdoor concert too. And so it was at a hotel, and the, bar area, which was an open area, they had TVs, and the place was packed. They're just Knights freaks. And so now we have this opportunity in only our second year, and they hit the ground running big time. Now they were a true expansion as opposed to a franchise relocation, obviously. Right. And they got it going quick. And we have this opportunity. And I was with Scotty yesterday. I was one of his friends, and we were talking about this, man, that what they've seen in the regular season, it's just going to be amplified. We're a playoff community, as most communities are. Yeah. And the opportunity to bring this in, it's going to be like it was. Remember the first game, and they had Shabuzi out there, and the plaza was all electric. Well, it's going to be like that. that first night when they had that game. It's going to be like that each time they have a playoff game if the weather's really good, which it has a tendency to be this time of year, obviously. And it's going to be unlike anything that those people Scotty plays this the promo there, I think, with Cooley, and he's talking about how I've never been in the playoffs. So they're going to feel it, and they're going to feel it around town too. Wherever they may live, and as they're driving to the Delta Center, and they're going to just feel the passion, and it's going to be so awesome. And then playoff hockey, can be super exciting because of the nature and the speed of the game and how one goal can change, and all of a sudden you blink and boom, you had another goal, and then a minute and a half later you got another one. You don't know when they're coming, right? That's the nature of this sport. It's like a home run. You don't know when it's coming, although from home runs, you get an opportunity. When Shohei comes up to bat, you're anticipating a home run. When he hits it, you're not shocked. You're impressed. Well, in hockey, it can be from anybody, anywhere, basically, can put that thing between those pipes, as they say, and that's what makes it fun.
We should get the NHL playoff schedule tonight after the last game finishes, but that you could be waiting on Edmonton and Vancouver, and the Kings are in Calgary. So until those games wrap up around 9:30 or 10, somewhere in there, and then I would expect we'll get the schedule. So we got to have it tomorrow morning, find out when and where they play. The key to the matchup, we will talk with Cole Bagley about that coming up at 9:30. Weber State's got a new basketball coach, and he joins us next. What is his tie to Damian Lillard, and how involved is Damian Lillard going to be in the Weber State basketball program going forward? That's next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. DJ, PK, and Caleb Kanales joins us now. He's the new basketball coach at Weber State. Caleb, good morning.
DJ, PK, good morning. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for coming on. So we understand college sports is changing big time. It's a little more like the pros, and you got to have some money, and you got to have some glitz and glamour. You have a tie to Damian Lillard. We know Lillard has a title with the organization. This has got to be part of your plan as a new guy coming in going forward. How is this going to work? What is this going to look like? What should we expect?
Well, we want to get the Purple Palace rocking again. You know, that's going to take a team effort from top to bottom. Just so grateful for the opportunity. Excited, attacking these past couple of weeks and building out a roster. But it's never going to change. You know, we want the best student athlete that's going to be fit for our university and a fit for our program going forward.
And so that's going to take some work. I believe you had 9 guys transfer out, and so far, correct me if I'm wrong, because things change every day, if not every hour. I think you've got 3 transfers in. Is that accurate?
I think they're still fluid, so I wouldn't even be able to tell you exactly because they can change here in the next hour or so. But, we've just been aggressively attacking and identifying, and our coaching staff and myself and the whole team has been doing a great job of getting the player, and like I mentioned, the student athlete that we want, to win and to win big here at Weber.
We just had Eric Kerr, the new Weber State football coach, on yesterday, and we were talking with him. If you're not at the very top or the very bottom, there's always a risk you're going to lose guys. And there are always going to be guys out there who maybe have the talent and have the measurables, but maybe they don't play the way you want. Maybe they don't play well in the sandbox with others despite their talent. Maybe they're not good in a team setting and all that. With literally thousands of names in the transfer portal, how do you go about evaluating all the stuff that you just can't see in the stats and maybe see quickly in the film so that you get the right people?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to dive into the film, and that's what we've been doing nonstop. But you bring up a lot of great points. Like one of our mantras here, a saying that I love that I learned a long time ago is champions adjust. We're going to have to be adjust. We're going to have to adjust on the fly. We're going to have to be fluid. We're going to have to be flexible and stay liquid in a lot of situations. But I know what we want it to look like, how we want to be elite on both ends of the floor. There's a formula here. And like you mentioned, I mean, you still have to pick the right player, but more importantly, you have to pick the right human.
Kevin Young down at BYU, when he took over, You know, he was talking big time, and he had come from the NBA ranks as an assistant. And you have experience there, 18 years, I think it was, including 23 or so games as the interim head coach of the Blazers. And so what Kevin did with some of his guys, particularly AJ DeBanza, who grew up in terms of, the favorite player being Kevin Durant. Well, he coached Kevin Durant, so he had Kevin make some contact, and he got Chris Paul and Devin Booker, and those guys are big time, at least 2 Hall of Famers. We'll see what Booker does when it's said and done, and use those as connecting points to get him players. You have the availability. Your Rolodex is very impressive, not just Damian Lillard, but I'm sure there's plenty of other guys. Do you anticipate being able to use that as an advantage in recruiting to get young fellows to commit to Weber State?
Yeah, one of the cool things, I thought you were going to get me in trouble and ask me for my favorite player over my coaching career, and you were going to get me in trouble here today. But, no, listen, I mean, those relationships that I have with a lot of guys that I've been able to coach, obviously Dame, Brandon Roy, Vince Carter, Jamal Crawford, Dirk, LaMarcus Aldridge over the years, Hall of Fame guys. The cool thing about it is that I have relationships with those guys for life, and a big part of it is, some of the cool stuff is a lot of the guys that I coach, their kids are coming up now. So that's been pretty cool to see. But, yeah, no, listen, I mean, life is about relationships, and obviously where we are in college basketball right now, it's such a great level. Everybody's excited about it as it should be, obviously coming out of a great Final Four. But, it continues to get better. And like I said, I think the guys that I've coached, will be in communication for sure.
How do you like to see your team play, or does that not matter? Are you the kind of guy who waits until you see the roster to decide how your team is going to play?
Yeah, good question. I think the answer is always somewhere in the middle, right? Like, we have an identity, we have a style of play. We want to be attacking on both ends of the floor. And if you study the history of the game, the champions usually have a similar formula. You have to be elite on both ends of the floor. You just have to. I think when you are, better offensively and defensively, there's a lot of deficiencies that usually don't carry you to a championship, a conference championship, or a Final Four championship. But we want to be elite, on both ends of the floor. We know it's going to take a lot of work. But to your point, I also have an idea of the player that we want to bring in here to fit the system. But I also want to know what our strengths are, right? Because I do want to play to our strengths and to the player's strengths. So I think it's going to be a hybrid in terms of us figuring it out. But my expectation is, for us to win and to win big.
How can you go about making connections with the local high school coaches and players and the AAU folks who do that stuff?
Yeah, we already started doing it. I mean, we're aggressively attacking. We want to keep the best players in Utah home here at Weber State. It's already been the priority for myself and the staff. And we have to be present. We have to be visible, right? And that's on me. But I know a lot of people here have family closer around the areas, closer on the ties, closer to us. But, yeah, no, that's something that it's a big, big time priority for me. I want to keep the best players in Utah here at Weber.
For those of us who've been here a long time, and that's definitely the two of us, everything has changed because the best players in the state used to go to Utah and BYU, and they were really good in the WAC, and they were really good in the Mountain West at both schools, and now they're in the Big 12, and the bar is just so high. There are good players here, but they're not Big 12 quality. At least they're not Big 12 quality as freshmen and sophomores. How comfortable are you with the pitch? Come here and play for a year or 2 or 3, and as you develop and as you have success, trust it. The calls will come and will help you when the time is right. How comfortable are you with that pitch?
Yeah, it's such a deep question. I think first, like you mentioned, I mean, there is a lot of good players in this state, and the credit goes to the high school coaches. They've done a phenomenal job over the years of developing these guys, and, all the AAU coaches, the elite AAU programs, select teams, travel teams, the parents that have invested in it. I think you're starting to see the fruits, player-wise, of the hard labor that they've done the past 10 to 15 years. There's no question about it. But like I said, we want kids to want to stay here for 4 years. We want kids to want to get their degree from our university because we have full confidence that we're going to have the best player development program in the country, and then we're going to win and win big. And that's going to take for us to keep, the homegrown talent here and rock the Purple Palace once again.
Talk about coaches, assistant coaches having specialties and also being able to recruit, maybe get some local guys on there. I just wanted your thoughts. I believe you're retaining at least one. Get your thoughts on what your staff is going to look like.
Yeah, Jorge Reese, just been a phenomenal coach for us for the program for the past couple of years. He's staying in his hybrid role as assistant general manager and assistant coach. And yeah, obviously we hit the ground running with his ties and his connections locally and around the state. But, all our coaching staff, as we round it off, everyone's going to recruit, everyone's going to player develop, everyone's going to game plan. This is a team, and this is a program. So everyone's going to have the same responsibilities. I know sometimes football does it a little different, and us basketball coaches, we study football coaches so much, and I can't it's different, right? You just don't have that many players. It's not two sides of the ball. Like the five guys on the floor have to play both ends. So as much as we want to divide responsibilities, our game is a little different. So, all our coaches, their responsibilities are going to be top to bottom, very active, at a high level.
Caleb Kanales joining us. He's a new basketball coach at Weber State. So you grew up in Laredo, Texas. Man, TV
Yes,
shows,
sir.
music, crazy, just all the stuff. And I'm just curious, we have seen a lot of athletes from Texas come to Utah and play. How much do you plan to recruit there? What are your ties? You were with the Mavericks for 5 years, but you've also been all over the country, Orlando, Indiana, New York, Portland. You've literally coached all over the NBA. What are the ties like in Texas? What kind of emphasis do you want to put on that state?
Yeah, no, deep ties, there in Texas, obviously have lived there a long time with my family and I. But, no, listen, our roots are here. And like you mentioned, I've been fortunate enough and blessed enough to coach all over the country. So, our ties are pretty deep. As you guys know, college basketball is an international sport now. I have experience internationally. So, again, the phone calls that I've been getting these past couple of weeks, are from everywhere in the world. So I feel very confident that we're going to be able to recruit the right type of player and the right type of student athlete that we want for our program. But again, like I said, we're going to aggressively, attack the recruiting here in Utah.
Dive a little bit deeper into your background. I was going to hit you up on the internationals, but you just addressed it. As I understand, you did not play college basketball. So how did you get to where you were and where you are?
Yeah, super blessed. Like when I found out that I had a conversation with myself and found out, man, you got to be really good to play Division I basketball. And I had a good high school career, solid. But yeah, no, I started. I figured what the next best thing after playing was coaching. So I started, studying coaches in the NBA, how they were getting their start. A lot of coaches, like Eric Spoelstra, studied him really, really deep. He started his. I think he did play college basketball. I think he might have played a year or two in pro, but he started in the video room, so I figured, I can start in the video room and just started, grinding it out there. And, in Portland, was fortunate enough to be there 10 years. I think basically probably covered every position there that there was. And then, like you mentioned, with the Mavs, with the New York Knicks, with the Pacers, I've coached internationally before with the Mexican national team. So, yeah, my journey's been, I'm really grateful for my journey. I feel like I've taken the stairs, and ready for this opportunity.
I'd love a couple stories about your days coaching the Mexican national team. International sports, there are crazy stories. And where it really overlaps with college, I do want a crazy story, by the way, but where it overlaps with college is finding these kids who are dual nationals, right, because of a parent or grandparent. They might not be living in the country that they're going to represent. You have to, through your network, find those players, and it seems like that's a little bit like going in the transfer portal.
Yeah, no, like you said, I feel like, my network, because of my experience and been all over, is pretty deep and strong. But like you mentioned, college basketball at its peak is very similar to international basketball when you're trying to qualify for the Olympics. Like you mentioned, obviously played in a lot of cool, crazy places, man. It's intense. It's like an NBA playoff game, like an NCAA tournament. We just lost to Nebraska here a couple of weeks ago at Troy, and it was intense, man. You guys see it on the TV and you guys see it live, but every possession matters, right? And obviously in college basketball, very similar to international, there's not as many games as in the NBA, so I think every game takes a different level of intensity. We want to obviously in our program be ready for that. But, yeah, like you mentioned, the international piece connected to the college, there is a lot of similarities to it, no doubt.
So you don't have any particular ties to Utah, but you have the tie to Damian Lillard. And probably 100 years from now, he's still going to be the most famous Weber State alumni basketball player. And I'm wondering how that came about, your interest, and how much I assume he had an involvement.
Yeah, no, like you mentioned, Dame, I mean, obviously he was my rookie there in Portland when I was with the Blazers and we drafted him. I think the summer actually heading into the draft, I was the interim head coach because it was between Terry Stotts and I, the final two, and then they gave the job to Terry, and Chad Buchanan was our interim GM at the time before they hired Neil. But yeah, no, obviously, have had a deep relationship about Dame, and not only is Dame a Hall of Fame point guard, he's a Hall of Fame person, and his passion and his care for the program, is awesome. It's awesome to see. So yeah, no, I'm excited to be right next to him as we kind of grow this thing back to the top.
I don't know if I think a lot of people in Ogden know, but I don't know if around the state they know how deep his ties run in Ogden and how meaningful that was to him at that point in his life. The people at the school, multiple people I've talked to, absolutely blown away when they found out that he was volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club and was way in deep. I mean, he was given a lot of time of himself. And they got a call from the Boys and Girls Club, and they're like, what are you talking about? We didn't set that up. And they're like, yeah, we know you didn't set it up. He was in here setting it up. And the way he connected with students, which is not an automatic, especially in this era, it was student government that set up a street party. They closed streets and open theaters downtown, and his draft was, I mean, there were theaters packed, there were people, it was like a county fair with all these booths, and everything short of carnival rides. It was just amazing. It's such a deep tie, and that's why we started, like, how involved is he going to be? Because I don't think he's just going to be a name on a door and some guy who swoops in, 2 nights a year. It's going to be way more than that, but I don't know what it's going to look like because he's not retired yet either.
Yeah, he's our general manager, and we're excited about that. But, the story you mentioned, like I mentioned, aside from the Hall of Fame player that he is and his career is going to continue to go, and hopefully he gets a championship that he deserves. But he is just one of one as a human, like you mentioned. I mean, he is just authentic and real person as it gets. And, like the stories you mentioned, that's who he is, and that's who he's always been. I still remember – and again, I won't bore you guys with the stories, but I remember his draft workout when he came in for his workout, and me and him started watching film together, and just how he took responsibility, how he was coachable. I think that's one of his secret sauces to this day, is that he is one of the most coachable superstars in the world. And I think, like you mentioned, this place, this city and this state, it means a lot to him. And, I'm excited to carry the tradition here at Weber.
It's funny that it turns out that you're going to have a new football coach and basketball coach at the same time. Both of you are of the same age. He'll turn 47 this year. I believe you're already 47. And I've known him for about 20 years, speaking to Kjar, and he's as cocky as all get out. So I don't want to make sure that you take a backseat to him whatsoever. So go ahead and win the Big Sky in your first year and put him in his place, okay?
That's gonna be my guy, man. We're gonna do it together. I'm excited. I'm excited about his program and his vision. And you guys know college sports, man. Like it's pretty cool when you can do it together as a university and as an athletic program. Obviously our athletic director Tim and our president Leslie Durham. We're all fired up and we're excited, and we know it starts with football. So we're going to be out there and supporting our coach and our team.
Well, we appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to you putting the roster together. It is just so interesting how people try to cobble the pieces of the puzzle together. Good luck with that, Caleb, and we'll look forward to talking to you again down the road.
Okay, appreciate it. Love to have you guys out for a game anytime, but appreciate you guys.
All right, there's Caleb Kanales. He is the head coach at Weber State as the Wildcats hit reset, and Damian Lillard is the GM. How will he help recruit players? And whenever he does retire, we'll see how he's coming back from a major injury here, but an injury that players are doing a much better job of coming back from than they did even 10 or 15 years ago. It seems like they're making a lot a lot of progress.
Yeah, he's a little older now, though, so
He
we'll
is.
see how that plays out.
And he's a guard.
It's all about the horses in basketball. You've got to get the players. And we know they've had players. We can remember. And I remember sitting in Taco Bell Arena, whatever it's called now, in Boise when they beat who was it? Oh, yeah, I think it was North Carolina, wasn't it? And yeah, of course it was. And the place in the press room was going nuts.
Yeah.
Because obviously that is the classic David and Goliath there. And if I remember, didn't Duke fans sell out Weber gear at the bookstore or something?
Yes.
Wasn't that the story?
Yeah. And that was like the second time they'd done it in 5 years, because earlier they'd beaten Michigan State. Judd Heathcote was right at the end of his run. And that was a massive deal. And I think the year they beat Carolina, didn't they play Florida, I think, and lose an OT? Yeah, because Georgetown beat them the other time. And they played a bunch of big dogs and gone toe-to-toe. Iverson shot an air ball, and one of their big kids grabbed it and threw it into the buzzer to give Georgetown the win. I think Weber missed a free throw with like 10 seconds left or something.
And Damian Lillard isn't the only pro that they've had, obviously.
No, not at all. They've had a long line of good players. Players who've gone on to be good coaches. They've got a
Eddie
proud
Gill.
basketball history. You can go back to Phil Johnson was there.
Oh, even in those days.
Dick
The world
Monahan,
was a
all the
little
way
bit
back to
different
the 60s
then, but
if you
yeah.
want.
And I think
Allen
Eddie
played there for
Gill
2 years in the 80s.
Eddie Gill does the announcing for commentary for Indiana, the Pacers.
Yeah,
something like that. So
A lot of
if
big
they can
names
get the
every
guys, then they have an opportunity to win. But it's not funny, funny, but it's sort of I don't know what the word would be, unique or what have you, that it's a new day for sports, the two big sports at Weber, with the two brand new coaches who one obviously won at an extremely high level at the high school level. And then you're getting someone at Weber State who's been in basketball for a long time, 18 years as an NBA assistant. That's impressive.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. When we come back, the Mammoth playoff opponent is set. How do Utah and Vegas match up? They've only played 3 times, and 2 of the games were way back in November, so what do they really mean? We'll talk with Cole Bagley next. He covers the Utah Mammoth for KSL Sports. We'll see what he thinks about this matchup. Stay with us.
Just a bunch of guys sitting around and talking sports. This is Scotty G and Friends.
Logan Cooley, 2 years ago, is about the time things really started to break that this organization was going to move from Phoenix to Salt Lake City. And now 2 years later, you're in the playoffs. Just what does that feeling feel like for you as a player, knowing that you're going to be playing postseason hockey?
It's awesome. I mean, I think as a little kid, you dream about eventually one day winning the Stanley Cup, and just the experience we're going to gain from being in the playoffs. You know, there's some guys on our team. I'm one of them that haven't even experienced playoff hockey. And, you know, you watch on TV, just the excitement in the buildings, how intense the hockey is. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be unbelievable. And I'm sure the fans are going to have the Delta Center rocking. And we can't honestly wait to, get started once playoffs start. It's going to be the most fun hockey that, I think I'm going to be a part of.
Catch Scotty G and Friends weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did you have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
Slacker Radio Headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. Call them at 801-210-6800 or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. PK, we've talked about a lot of things this morning. Why don't we start off with greatness? Shohei Ohtani.
Here I am.
There's just no way around it. Nice. There's no way around it. This guy's got multiple MVPs. He's hit 50 home runs. He's stolen 50 bases. He's done it in the same season. He's pitching. He's back to – I don't know if they're absolutely cutting him loose. It seems like 6 innings is it for him right now. And maybe that's just baseball in this era, or maybe we'll see him pitching a 7th or 8th down the road. But 3 starts, 18 innings, 7 hits, only 2 runs, only 1 of them earned. He's been sensational. He struck out 10 in 6 innings last night, 1 hit ball for 6 innings. beat the Mets, who've now dropped to 8 in a row. Shohei is crushing it, and he wants the Cy Young, and it looks like he's on track. The only question is he going to pitch enough?
Yeah, you've established true greatness when it's almost like, oh, yeah, the stuff you just listed, ho-hum.
Right. I know. And this is Fantasyland stat stuff. Nobody does this. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So Shohei, the GOAT. If he gets a Cy Young, how do you argue it? You'd just be sitting on 125 going on 130 years of baseball. Babe Ruth was awesome, and Mickey Mantle was awesome, and Willie Mays was awesome, but this guy's putting together a resume that no one comes close to.
Yeah, with the pitching, especially if he gets a Cy. Yeah, I agree.
Unreal. All right, we talked a little baseball. We talked a little golf with Mike Weir, who talked Champions Dinner with you. You love that conversation. Just on the balcony, with Jack, just catching up.
Sweet.
That sounds pretty good.
Right.
Your favorite part of that interview? What'd you like out of that?
The whole thing. The text that we got afterward. The text that we got afterward, and then we can go to Cole Bagley now.
All right.
You can look at the text because my life is about to change next April.
All right. Cole Bagley joins us now. Cole Bagley covers the Utah Mammoth for KSLSports.com. His appearance brought to you by Hercules First Federal Credit Union. Growing stronger together. Cole, good morning. Happy playoffs.
Yes, sir. We're all set, right? I mean, Utah's heading down to Vegas to make their playoff debut. So, there's a game tonight, but let's get rolling into the playoffs.
We need dates and times and all that kind of stuff. But, yes, we do know the matchup. What is the most important thing in this matchup, the number one thing you're looking at to see with what looks like two pretty evenly matched teams, who advances?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for Utah, this is a series that they can win. I'm not saying that they will win it. But, just based on, how these two teams have matched up through the first, 2 seasons of the NHL in Utah, it's split, it's 3-3. But, Utah has a +8 goal differential. Now, things change in the playoffs, right? Utah is a very inexperienced team while, Vegas is a very experienced team. However, there's a lot of other factors to consider here. I think that, Utah is very hungry. They're eager to prove themselves. They don't want to be done. They obviously accomplished their goal of getting into the playoffs, but that's just the first step. These guys are anxious to prove themselves, to kind of put the National Hockey League on notice, and I think that they have what it takes if they play their game the right way and on a consistent basis through this first round series. I think they could push Vegas, and there definitely is a world where Utah could advance.
Vegas is an interesting team to try to study, and I've been trying to study them here as it looked like they were going to play and get a little bit more in depth. And it's crazy. They've gone through 3 goaltenders, and then with 8 games to go, you rarely see this. Now, I know maybe it's possibly a little bit more common in hockey. They make a change in coaching, and they haven't lost. I think they won the 7, and then they had a tie. So what do we make of Vegas with the coaching change and the 3 goaltenders, and maybe they're hot now? I'm trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, Vegas is kind of just an unknown situation. I really don't know what to expect from them just based off all the factors that you talked about. I mean, it's been a weird year, down in Vegas. They added Mitch Marner in the offseason, and I don't think that it had quite gone the way that they were anticipating. They didn't become this juggernaut of the Pacific. They barely, clinched the division. It came down to the last game of the season for them to accomplish that, and they needed a couple games to go their way. And, but like you mentioned, they made a coaching change, which, making a coaching change and then seeing results like this is something that is fairly common in the National Hockey League, but not when you have 8 games left and you're on a trajectory to be a top 3, seed in your division going into the playoffs. That's what kind of took people, off guard a little bit. Is they weren't playing bad. I just don't know that they were playing up to the level of the Vegas Golden Knights, and that's just kind of the style and the brand of that organization. Is it's a gold standard. It's in the name, right? And they expect the very best, and they expect to be competing for Stanley Cups year in and year out. So I think for Utah, they need to take this series very seriously. Obviously Vegas has kind of figured it out over the last 8 games. They have yet to lose under their new head coach. So, no, it's definitely going to be a challenge. But like I said before, I like the way that Utah matches up here against the Golden Knights, and I think we're in for a very exciting series.
People love to say, you're playing your best as the playoffs roll around. And it's really true with the Mammoth, who were basically a 500 team until the first of the year. They've won 2/3 of their games since then, and they're winning about 75% of their games over the last 8, here into the playoffs. Why are they winning so much more? What have they figured out, and does it / will it translate to the playoffs?
Yeah, I think that Utah has grown and matured. And I think that's really the reason that they've figured things out over the back half of the season. They're one of the best teams, since coming into the new calendar year. And, you listed off how many games they've won and their percentages. And, their power play is kind of humming right now. They've figured out how to be really effective. They went from, the worst power play in the National Hockey League to, I think, over the last, since coming back from the Olympic break, I think they're in the top 3 there, and that they were second there for a while. So, for Utah, the reason that they started winning so many games is they matured in a way that they learned how to weather adversity. There were a lot of times where they went down earlier, they were trailing, or maybe a team, came back and, maybe they were up by 2 or 3 goals and suddenly it's a 1-goal game or a tie game. And Utah figured out how to get past the finish line, how to put themselves over the top and to win those games. Whereas a year ago as the Utah Hockey Club, they were infamous for blowing, fairly big leads or, losing a lot of 1-goal games. Whereas this year, we saw that towards the beginning of the season. Most of their losses were just 1-goal games. And, as the season went on and they matured and some of these younger guys started to continue to figure it out, like the Gunthers and the Coolies. And, I think when you take a step back, there's so many guys in bigger roles for this team than in their previous destinations or than they've ever played in their career. I mean, Clayton Keller is still learning how to be a captain in the National Hockey League. And Mikhail Sergachev is number 1 defenseman on the team, and that's not what his role was in Tampa Bay. And Nate Schmidt was more of a depth defenseman in Florida, and he comes here, and now he's one of the anchors of the blue line, and he's got such a role in terms of being a veteran and a veteran leader. And so, just as the year went on, I think everybody just started to kind of thrive and embrace their roles and figure it out. And like I said, the biggest thing that this team has learned is how to weather adversity. And that's going to be a huge deal in the playoffs because, momentum shifts are 10 times bigger, 10 times more intense in the playoffs. If you're a team that wants to make some noise, you got to be able to weather a storm. You have to be able to, defend your own zone for, lengthy, defensive zone possessions where, a team is just smothering you and they're peppering the goalie. You have to be able to, get through that and then go at the other end. Like that's just how playoff hockey is. And, I like that Utah has really started to figure out how to play that way in the regular season. And if they can continue to do that, to me, that is the biggest factor as to whether or not Utah can survive this series and make some noise and potentially win is, can they play a mature game as they've done, over the back half of the season?
Special teams matter so much, and it's highlighted. I think that's what you're getting at as you're talking about the momentum changes and so forth. And you look at the power plays and then the penalty kills. I believe Vegas is in the top 7 or 8 in both in terms of scoring and preventing scoring. Do you think that is an advantage of Vegas, or how do you think that the Mammoth will stack up in that situation?
Yeah, it definitely is. Winning playoff games comes down to just a handful of plays, right? I mean, it comes down to one mistake or one, big success. And, special teams become so critical in the playoffs. That's why Utah is going to need to do their best to avoid taking penalties. And then they're going to need to do their best as well to continue to play well as a special teams unit. What's made the biggest difference for Utah in terms of converting on the power play lately, we had a discussion with Nick Schmaltz the other day after they scored two power play goals on 5 opportunities against the Jets. He said he feels like, they're putting more pucks on net, and rather than playing a perimeter style game, they're getting to the middle of the ice. They're getting in front of the goaltender. They're screening his vision. They're putting, pucks in dangerous places. The defensemen are starting to contribute a little more. If you paid a little bit closer attention to that game against Winnipeg, Mikhail Sergachev had like 7, 8, or 9 shots, and quite a few of them were on the power play, and that's the reason that Nick Schmaltz actually scored his first goal of the night was on the power play, because Mikhail Sergachev, stepped up. He recognized that there was a lot of traffic in front. He put a well-placed shot on the goaltender, expecting that puck to come back out, and then Nick Schmaltz was able to tap it home. So, yeah, special teams are huge. Obviously, Vegas is a very good special teams unit on both ends of the ice. I think a lot of that just comes down to how experienced that team is, how many veteran leaders they have on that team. So for Utah, again, it's going to come down to maturity. Can they play their game at the highest level? And their power kill kind of dropped off a little bit over the back half of the season. The power play started to rise, while the power kill started to drop off. But I think what should give some confidence to Mammoth fans is the fact that at one point the Mammoth power kill was, I think, second or third in the National Hockey League. So the potential is there to thrive in both scenarios and at both ends of the ice. But it's going to come down to just how motivated is this team to play their game as consistently as possible over the course of the 7-game series.
We can sit here and analyze and break it down, but how much of the playoffs really is momentum, a couple of fortunate bounces, your ability, maybe the thing that Andre Tourigny's talking about, and he's been talking about it to get them to this moment, your ability to get a big body in front of the goal and either just shield the goaltender or get a deflection that beats him, and whole series just hang on that kind of stuff, which when you're trying to, tip a puck that's going 100 miles an hour, it seems a little random.
Yeah, I think that the Stanley Cup playoffs probably possess the most palpable momentum in any playoffs in professional sports. And I think the NBA at times can be really close, but just with how hard these guys play, through all 4 rounds, right from the get-go, everything is just so much bigger. Every check, is so much more impactful. Every goal feels, really deflating for the team that lets it in. And, everything that goes on, even, when you boil it down, just winning your battles in the corner, winning faceoffs are huge. And so, for Utah, I think if they really want a good shot to potentially win this series, going back to momentum, I think that winning game 1 is going to be absolutely crucial for this team to get it done. If they want to really push Vegas, the biggest thing and the best thing that they could do would be to go down and into their barn and shock them and shock their fans and steal game 1 to assert themselves in the show. They're not going to be treated lightly. And so, just momentum is everything in hockey, but it is just tenfold in the playoffs.
Who do you think has better top-end talent?
Like just right now?
Yeah, right now, because sometimes, the best players can make the difference.
I'd probably go with Vegas.
Yeah.
I think Eichel is, the best player on that team. And,
right.
He's arguably the second best American player in the game. And I think at times he could even, go toe-to-toe with Austin Matthews as the current best American player in the game. And then to have, a guy like Mitch Marner, a really, really good player for Team Canada, had,
right.
Some big games and made an influence at the Olympics. And then, their captain, Stone, he's been there before, right? He knows what
right.
it takes. He led this team to a Stanley Cup, not too long ago. So, if you looked, on paper, I would definitely go with Vegas, but I think that Utah might potentially be the deeper team,
sure.
just based on, how much talent they have up and down the roster and how well a lot of their depth is playing right now.
We will leave it right there for now. We will inevitably talk to you again during the playoffs as this unfolds. We are looking forward to it. This will be fun. Cole, thanks for coming on the air.
All right, thanks, Jens. Have a good one.
There's Cole Bagley, KSLSports.com. Follow him. He's got stuff up on YouTube. He's got stuff up on the website. All the hockey you could want. Cole's got it for you on KSL Sports and KSLSports.com. All right, PK, we got to take a break. When we come back, your feedback next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it is time for your feedback. We've been talking. It's time you get a say. A lot of people weighing in on the question, what's BYU got to do now? Rob Wright returns. Jake Wahlin commits. How you feeling about BYU basketball? And Landon, we need a big man, at least 2 more size.
Agreed.
Well, they literally don't have a center right now, so yeah, that's very prudent.
And who comes off the bench right now, Jake?
Right now?
Yeah, right?
The starting center is probably Hadim Boop right now, so that would, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Jake Wahlin's your 4. Yeah.
Go Cougs, get me a 7-footer, and I'm all in. That's what Go Cougs says.
And that's funny because they used to have 7-footers at BYU. Seemed like they grew on trees.
Yeah, right? Scott says, it's a start. I don't like the signings, but they still need a couple of bigs, and they need more depth.
Those are facts. Yeah,
yep.
I mean, he's got time.
Nick, this is great. We just need some true bigs, and we're good to go.
Last thing you need is false bigs, yeah.
Clint says, we're turning the corner, but we got a ways to go. We still need several key pieces. People keeping their eye on BYU.
I understand that, but you're gaining momentum now.
Yeah. Donovan says getting Rob Wright back is huge. He's going to dominate next year. BYU just needs some size now. And Jack, the U State Iceman, sends us the gift. Shut up and take my money. Guys, waving money at people. You know, the money isn't enough. Lots of people have money. PK, you've been hearing just how routine the $3 million player is becoming, which as we get more schools that are moving past $10 million, $15 million, $20 million, it's really not that surprising. I would hesitate to say this guy is getting X. But if you stand back and you hear where all the numbers are going, there got to be a lot of $3 million guys out there, which is mind-blowing.
And I think Rob Wright is close, if not in that category. And these coaches are learning on the go here on how to do all these things too. Yeah. And that's where I think Kevin is having a better understanding each year of how to go about this because it's so brand new and he's, relatively new to the college game too and figure things out. The good thing is that Rob Wright stepped back, looked at everything and said, this is a good situation. I'm comfortable here. I'm familiar with everything. And I'm cool here, and I think that's a powerful message.
Well, there's so many kids
because he could have got the money elsewhere for sure. Yeah. Obviously,
there's so many kids, and there's so many ways to do this. And I don't know if we're ever going to have because all these different players are in different situations. But for a lot of the best kids, doing what Rob Wright did, when you look at it at the end, makes sense. Life's about options. If you're good enough to have options, why don't you take them? Now, he didn't do some world tour and keep them waiting. Okay, this seems like there was a specific situation he was intrigued by. It wasn't 4 teams in 4 days and you had to fly down to San Diego and what are we waiting on? But if you want to go take a look at a place or two real quick and then make a decision quickly, I mean, they've got that right. Why not?
Yeah.
The world tour, that kind of thing bothers me and leave them hanging for a couple weeks. I feel like you kind of have to move on at that point and cover yourself. But if you're going to go in the portal because you got 1 or 2 big name programs that want you, that actually makes a lot of sense.
And I do think if you would ask Kevin Young, who's the one guy you want back, obviously you put AJ off to the side because he's most likely going to the pros. We understand that. And I think the one guy he would say is Rob Wright. So they got their number one player that they retained.
And the fact that they're retaining makes me think they're ready to address the stuff that we saw. And we acknowledge, it can happen for different reasons. But maybe the ball moves better next year when there are more shooters. And as a junior, he gets better at passing off the dribble as he gets another year and gets used to playing against bigger guys and being in a leadership role, not a freshman maybe who's out doing his own thing and even a little bit as a sophomore. Plus, the roster just ought to be built differently.
We'll see an improved Rob Wright next year.
Too. Yeah. We also have people weighing in on the question of the Jazz and the playoffs. What should the goal be next year? And it's just basically overwhelming. Will Hardy was reluctant to talk playoffs next season in his postseason press conference, but the players were addressing it. Is it playoffs or bust? Lane, all caps, yes. Tankathon, back to all caps. Over.
Yeah.
Let's
OVA.
go.
Over.
Ethan, what would bust mean in this case? Trade everyone and start over? LOL.
Not make the
everyone,
playoffs.
but somebody. I think it would lead to a real bust. Would lead to major roster moves. I think. I mean, you're constricted a little bit by the salary cap and what everybody else is allowed to do and second aprons and all that. But this isn't. I don't think if they struggle, they're going to be standing pat. I'm not sure how much they're going to stand pat if they have success. Boston was always pretty aggressive, and that's kind of our guidepost right now.
Sure.
All right, we're all done. It is 10 o'clock. Jake and Ben are coming up next. Stay with us right here on The Zone.